Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rhythm, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up to
Oh my god!
Oh.
Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Six is very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Hello everyone and welcome to tonight's V8SCOPS support series for 2021, brought to you by the guys at racingsims.co.nz. I'm Bo Albert, and alongside me for tonight is Mr. JK Kennedy as we take on the glorious 2.6 kilometers of racetrack that once filled the region with many historic moments in Australian touring car action. So, why not do a throwback and run the old gen cars around here as well? It's round 2 for the V8s. Right now, the drivers find themselves in a 20-minute qualifying session where currently it's Joshua Burden sitting in the top spot at the moment. But Jay, when it comes to hooking up a lap around Oran Park, it is not easy.
100%, very, very difficult to get a lap down, and to get a lap down that you've nailed as well. So going to be very difficult for the drivers to get a time in this 20-minute session that they will be happy with. Very, very easy to run off the circuit, especially through the flip-flop, through the dogleg section, and a few other sections that you can get those 1x off tracks as well. And drivers also have to be aware, V8SCOPS rules, of course, means no escape rule in effect. Have to be very, very careful of that throughout this qualifying as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So many times we've seen drivers just make a little slip up and escape when they really weren't meant to be, but there's no escaping just where Oran Park is. You can see just to the west there of Sydney there, and just below Bathurst as well. It is in a home of motorsport. It truly is a very iconic location in Australian motorsport, which, of course, as many of you would know, no longer exists. So this is really one of the only tracks in iRacing, apart from North Wilkesboro, that is truly restored in its old presence. You can see there, weighing in at a glorious 11 corners. It opened in 1962, but then sadly closed in the 25th of January 2010. It is a figure 8 as well, which, Jay, is just super unique, and the only other circuit I can really think of off the top of my head that is also a figure 8 is Suzuka, so Oran Park in really unique company.
100%, and I mean, there's a figure 8 that you can do at Irwindale, but that's a little bit different. But yeah, Suzuka and Oran Park, the only two figure 8 courses we've got on iRacing. Interesting little fact, Oran Park was getting close to release, but they were having issues getting the figure 8 timing sorted on the circuit, so they had to put it on the back burner for a little bit. Then they signed Suzuka, got Suzuka sorted, and that meant that it opened the door for Oran Park to get finished. So that's how Oran Park came about. Of course, now free content of part of iRacing as well, so everyone that's a member of iRacing can go and race at Oran Park.
Absolutely, and I definitely recommend it. And even if you don't have these Gen supercars, of course, free content does include the 2009 Ford Falcon supercar as well. So if you are interested in seeing just how the racing is, of course, if you have an iRacing account, be sure to try that combination out, and then maybe you can pull the pin on one of these glorious 2014 cars, and maybe join the series for round number 3 as well. Of course, this season, the V8SCOPS support series goes all the way through to the very last round of the main V8SCOPS series, so be sure to tune in and find out when all these races are, because there is plenty of them going and following the SCOPS calendar, which of course is on this weekend as well. Cannot forget that. Don't forget, if you are interested in running in V8SCOPS this Sunday, that pre-qualifying is underway right now. You can get yourself on the grid in either Split 1 or Split 2. Get yourself on track. There is plenty of drivers trying to fight their way around this 2.6 kilometers, and at the moment, one of the drivers taking a very wide line is the driver in first place. It's Josh Burden. And Jay, why don't we go for a lap on board with Josh?
Yep, let's look at this amazing Oran Park circuit on board with Josh Burden in the Fusion Sim Racing car. Turn 1, very, very tough corner to get right, and you see off in the distance there's a car pressed up against the wall. They'll be reversing out of that turn 2 key leader, which will see many, many victims throughout this race tonight. Turn 3, very, very sharp corner, underrated how difficult that corner is, and here from this point on, it's all right-handers, puts a lot of load on the left-hand side of the car, up over the rise and over the very, very iconic bridge. Another right-hander before you come up to yet again another right-hander. By this point here, your left-hand tyres are absolutely screaming for mercy. Over the rise, blind entrance through that little S-bend, through turn 8 and up to the very, very famous dogleg. Flat out through here, you cannot see your apex at all. You just have to guess, hope and pray that you get it right. Under brakes, huge crowd in attendance at the virtual Oran Park. And that is a lap. Before you know it, it's all over in under 65 seconds.
Yep, very quick laps here, and the thing that I think surprised a lot of people about Oran Park is the elevation change as well, because it is a very short lap, but there's also so much elevation that goes in throughout the circuit as well. It is very cool to see. If you take a look at some of our other cars on track at the moment, Aaron Gilbert finds himself all the way up in second place right now, and he's going to be hoping to challenge Josh Burden, currently only a 1/10 of a second away. He's on a hot lap at the moment as he goes over the rise into his really fast right-hander, where the car is just screaming for mercy. The tyres only just holding on, and then you go through this big dip, and you'll get a good look at it here as the cars plunge downhill. And never mind, let's go straight back up again with the elevation changing constantly around here before eventually going through this very cool section. You can see the car almost lifting up all 4 wheels off the ground there. Very cool indeed into the final corner for Gilbert. What can he do? Where can he stop the clock? And look at the traffic on the outside as well. Gilbert is going to stop the clock and improve. No, not quite. It's a 4.8, so stays in second place, but that lap time was also good enough for second place. So he's showing that not only can he run at a fast pace, but can also do it multiple times.
Exactly right, and that's going to be the key to a strong night, is consistency throughout the running of this event. As also tonight, first time in a little while that we've had this on a V8 broadcast. But the Zoom feed's back again, so Daniel Stevens. Love looking at Daniel's rig, it's very, very cool. One thing you'll notice, Bo, when we look at Daniel throughout the night, he runs an incredibly high force feedback on his wheel, so he gets a true workout when he's racing.
Yeah, you can already see that just down the straight. There's a little bit of wobble there to him, and then he brakes hard into turn number 1. You can see working very hard at the steering wheel. A little bit of a lock up there, but definitely plenty of force feedback being put for that wheel there. And of course, Dan Stevens, as is almost tradition at this point, deciding headphones, don't need them. They're just there for looks at this point in time. So he's going to keep on pushing at the moment. You can see also using a sequential shifter, which is very cool to see, of course. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of drivers using paddle shifts. Sequential just adds a little bit more. I've got one myself, and I have to say it's absolutely phenomenal to use. It just gives you a whole different, sense of immersion, especially in these supercars, which is so mechanical to drive. He plunges downhill. Where can he end up at the moment? Currently sitting in P3, very close in the fight to your pole sitter as well. So You know, Oran Park is a short lap. You'd expect the lap times to be close, but nonetheless, these drivers still putting on a very good show indeed. As I'm looking at right now, the entire top 6 separated by just half a second through the final corner. Whereas Daniel Stevens, he will stop the clock, and this isn't going to be the lap for him, but he will have another crack at it.
Yep, 100%. And one thing to note is that the drivers are a little bit slow. Oh. Aaron Gilbert just sitting there in the wrong spot at the wrong time. A little bit lucky. One thing to note is the drivers are in a little bit different conditions to what they had in practice. They were practicing just as the sun was rising, so the track's been starting to warm up throughout this session, and that could cause a little bit of issues for drivers later on, because race 2 is going to be in the late afternoon conditions, so the track will be completely different. That may cause some drivers some headaches later on.
Yep, absolutely. It's going to be a big mindset change for these drivers, going from one condition and then being thrown into a totally different scenario where they're going to have to adapt very, very quickly, because of course you don't get much time in between races here. We have the support truck series jumping in as well in the middle, but apart from that, maybe 10-15 minute break, these drivers have to really adapt nice and quickly. Take a look at Simon Mazzomo with perhaps the ugliest wheel grips I've ever seen in all my life, as he can hear us, so he's a little bit of a chuckle there. I'm surprised he's not made a rude gesture to me just yet. That was almost a rude gesture, but nonetheless, he will keep on trucking on for yet another lap and see what he can do. Currently sitting a little bit down the order is Mazzomo, just in the top 10, but we know there's plenty of potential there when he's not locking up into turn number 1.
Jason Spriggs currently P5, just starting a flying lap. That's a huge lock up into turn 2. We'll see that quite a lot, just the load on the car through that kink, and then as you straighten the car up and then put your foot on the brake, tends to lock those inside tyres very, very easily. So we're going to see a lot of lockups there. What that does do, because you're locking up the inside tyre, you can hyperheat that tyre, which then becomes the loaded tyre for the next segment of corners. What's that, 5 corners in a row that are all right-handers? That's the loaded side. That's the side that locked up, so you've got to be careful. Make sure as he's just abandoned that lap, that run. Not long left in the session, only 4 minutes to go.
Yep, not long at all indeed for these drivers to get their final runs in, and at the moment, really, there hasn't been too much movement in the times since the start of this particular race. So these drivers have definitely been a little bit stagnant, maybe just preparing themselves for this very last run. Of course, it is now 8 o'clock in the morning sim time, so these drivers still have a long way to go in terms of the track heating up, so it should still be nice and cool. So plenty of opportunities for these drivers to improve with the track conditions. It's just whether or not they're able to hook up the lap beautifully. As you can see, they're a much better run through turn number 1 for Jason Spriggs. Hooks it up, no lock up at all. The tyres should be in good condition for the next 5 continuous right-hand corners.
Yeah, it doesn't need to find much time to gain a spot as well. They actually will gain two positions if you can find just over 1/10 of a second. So hasn't got much to find, and that's probably why he's continuing on. There'll be a few drivers that'll be feeling quite comfortable with their position at the moment. Burden only 1/10 ahead of Gilbert. Those two will probably be happy with where they are at the moment, but everyone else, all those positions are well and truly up for grabs. All the way right down to our very good mate Nick Scrave, down in position number 16. He's not a fan of driving these things, but he's out there because he just loves racing, full stop. So it's great to see him out there, and great to see all sorts of drivers out there just for the love of racing, as Henry King goes P3. Good job from him.
Yep, absolutely slots himself into the very tight gap in between between Aaron Gilbert and Daniel Stevens. So very close quarters between these drivers at the moment, as we see another driver go off in the background just there. But now looking at Henry King working his way through, currently right up at the pointy end. He only has to find 0.5 of a second, and he'll find himself on the front row of the grid. And the front row here is very important because it is quite a long run into turn number 1. So if you can get on the front row and hook up your start, doesn't matter if you're first or second, you put yourself in a very, very strong position to command the rest of this race. Because Oran Park, well, there are overtaking opportunities, but it's not super easy, so qualifying can be quite a nice factor if you can hook it all up. You can see they're preparing for this next lap. So he's got about 2 minutes on the clock here. He'll get 2 more runs at this, but Henry King, time running out. Can he do the job?
Interesting to see if he can find a little bit more, especially with the tyres being worn and going for a second run. So not something we normally see. We normally see drivers come in, bolt another set of tyres on and go again. So have a second crack at it. A little bit interesting, something we don't normally see these drivers do. seeing that Corey Kitchen has driven his car into the pits and he's done for the session. So he will not take any further part. Mason Spriggs also, he's just ran off the circuit there. I think he's back in the lane.
It's a little bit more closer. It's a bit closer as well for second and third place now, as Daniel Stevens has found his way to a little bit of improvement. It's within 200ths of a second. Nah, forget what I'm saying. He goes P2 on his next lap, with a great effort to go half a tenth of a second faster. So now second, third, and fourth separated by just 1/10. It is close quarters. I think for Daniel Stevens, that may be the end of his qualifying session. No further action, along with the 35, which is facing just a little bit of damage there. Of course, that is Nathan Tregarthen, I do believe.
That's Burden.
That's Burden. Oh, my apologies. So our pole sitter there with a little bit of damage. We've got a 35 car and an 035. It's clearly a very popular number in today's field. There is 1 minute left on the clock. Aaron Gilbert currently sitting in third spot, but with a lot of potential to go 2 spots higher. It's his final effort around this circuit. Can he hook it up? This is a distraction in front of him. One car goes off. That may have been Mazoma. I'm not entirely sure, but nonetheless, he won't be thinking about that. It's about hooking up these next few corners through the right, through the left, through the compression as well. He's still attacking at the moment. He will know what the delta is. He'll know if he is up or if he is down, if he has to find just a little bit more. Over the rise, and then hard on the brakes, almost 2 wheels in the grass there, and may have been, as he struggles to pull the car up into the final corner, rounds it out onto the straight, and all you can do now is sit and hope the delta's good enough, and this time, not quite enough for Aaron Gilbert. He's a tenth slower than his fastest lap, so he will remain P3 at the moment. And who else is on a lap? No improvement by Henry King, so he will stay in P4 at the moment. Daniel Stevens is on a lap at the moment, I believe, as well, but I'm not sure if he is going to be able to improve. There's plenty more fire their way through. Reese Harnell is one of those drivers. Where can he end up at the moment in the triple two? Currently P9. What is his potential on this lap? Unfortunately, the potential wasn't enough. He bails to the pits.
Stevens is on another lap, as you said, so let's see what he can do. Whether he's got enough to gain any more. I love that shot. 2 wheels up in the air. He bounces it over the curb. I don't know if he's got enough left in this to improve. He's continuing on with the lap, so must be okay. Will it go P1? No.
Not quite, but very, very close indeed. His fast lap is a 0.6. That lap was a 0.7. Have another driver on a lap. The Shane Best, whose car is not looking its best, rounds the final corner. What can he do? I'm not sure about the delta at the moment, so I think he will bail it into the pits as well. And by bail, well, tyre bail is what he's going for. Blake Delaney on a lap at the moment into the final corner, and the all-Australian coloured car looks very cool indeed. What can he do as he rounds the final corner again? I'm not sure about the sector split, but he may give it a crack. No, I don't think he will, so I believe that may just be about all our drivers as Anthony Green dives into the pits as well. So our 16 V8 supercars that are going to take to the grid here tonight, all done in qualifying, and boy, it is definitely a close qualifying.
100%, very, very tight qualifying session. With not much separating those front 4 guys at the front. Great job from those 4 to be so close and so tight.
Yes, indeed. So on the front row, you can see there, Josh Burden will line up on pole position with Daniel Stevens for company. Who's going to win that drag race in towards turn number 1? Aaron Gilbert and Henry King line up on row number 2, with Simon Vella rounding out our top 5 ahead of Jason Spriggs, who will start in position number 6. Blake Delaney will kick things off from position number 7 with Nathan Tregarthen for company, as Reese Harnell and Anthony Green round out our top 10.
Yep, then we've got Corey Kitchen and Simon Mazoma. They'll start side by side on row 6. Row 7 will be David Coleman and Sam Fenwick. We've got Shane Best and Nick Skraev. The last 2 runners, Ben Christensen, will be looking after the safety car and making sure that everyone keeps themselves under control throughout the night's racing, because race control have been needed in the past in V8SCOPS support. More so in the Porsches than in the V8, but definitely have been required.
Oh, those pesky Porsche drivers, hey? They are absolute lunatics, as these drivers are currently lighting themselves up on the grid as the countdown ticks on by for the start of this 38 lap race. So plenty of laps to think about and plenty of laps for things to go just a little bit wrong if you get a bit too over eager on the throttle, on your corner entry, or braking into turn number 1. There's a lot of ways for this to go wrong, but who is going to be the driver that ends up getting it all right and walking away with a victory at the end of our first of 2 races for these V8s? And of course, we have the trucking legends in the middle of these 2 races as well. A short little race for them. How will they get on around this circuit? You can see the field now filing in nicely. Who is going to be the driver to take themselves into turn number 1 first? There are so many opportunities for these drivers to make a pass into turn 1 if they can get the launch absolutely spot on. Revs begin to rise, eyes on the lights to get ready for this start. Who's it going to be? It's Josh Burden and Daniel Stevens on the front row, and Burden goes nowhere, swamped off the line. It's the Daniel Stevens show us contact on the front straight. They've all held on to it, albeit a few, busted panels. And you can see 3 wide in the background as well, sorting themselves out into turn number 1. So far, it looks like no one's found their way into the gravel, so it's all nice and steady apart from a few sketchy little battles. But I think for the most part, these drivers have done a good job through turns 1 and 2. Into turn 3, though, hard braking zone, and I think, again, the driver's being relatively good. So I think apart from that little kerfuffle we saw 50 meters off the start line, these drivers doing a nice job. But the real loser, has to be said there, is Josh Burden, who has fallen down all the way this order after starting on pole position. That is a nightmare for him.
100% a nightmare. He'll be absolutely horrified, and he'll go back and look at that after this race and try and work out exactly what happened. It's a horrible launch. I'm actually concerned, though, about Daniel Stevens. His launch almost looked like it was too good. I'm worried that he might have got a penalty there, but we'll find out very, very soon. But Henry King also with a great launch, so that inside row definitely got away much, much better than the outside. P1, P3 definitely didn't get off to the best start.
No, not at all. So Daniel Stevens will lead at the end of lap number 1. Now you can see there, into the pits he will go. So unfortunately, it goes from bad for worse there for our 35 car and our pole sitter. So Josh Burden not in any way, shape or form having a good start to race number 1 after it all looks so promising. But you can see here, Henry King applying the blowtorch and trying to close up a little bit to our leader as well. And just behind that, Aaron Gilbert also hunting down Jason Spriggs as well. So these drivers, a bit of pairings at the moment. You see there's a bit of a gap between 2nd and 3rd, but nonetheless, 1st and 2nd are together, 3rd and 4th together as well, as they make their way over the bridge, working their way through, just trying to set themselves up for how they want to approach this race. As Spriggs goes a little bit wide, almost opens the door there for Gilbert. As you can see, he's hunting his prey at the moment. Another lockup for Spriggs, so he's struggling a little bit here, and he is not going with the pace of Stevens and King. So his qualifying effort was good enough to start him in P6, but his race pace right now not looking all too promising. And speaking of not too promising, a car off the road there in the FG Falcon, a nightmare there for the 136 driver, and that's of course Corey Kitchen. So we'll get a virtual racing school replay and find out what exactly has happened here to find himself off in the kitty litter.
Started a fair way back, so that's way back at the bridge, and then the next corner is where he's actually had the off. So I'm wondering if there's been contact with Tregarthen around the outside, or a little bit of door-to-door contact, and that's just helped Corey Kitchen around into the fence. So he won't be too happy with how that's played out, but yeah, the lack of control through that corner earlier definitely is what started that incident.
Yep, absolutely. It was a bit of a weird wiggle over the bridge. It's not something you normally see, but perhaps the setup he's running just a little bit sketchy over elevation changes or sudden elevation changes, and that little lip in the middle of the bridge was just enough to unsettle his car and send him on for a very long and wild ride into the gravel trap. So it's a shame to see, but nonetheless, plenty still going on at the circuit as Daniel Stevens continues to lead and is not diving into the pits at the moment, so he's clearly, content that he doesn't have a penalty or anything. So he is going to keep on leading yet another lap. Spriggs, though, not looking all too comfortable as Gilbert continues to get closer and closer and closer into turn number 1. Nowhere near close enough to go for a move, but you can see he's looking and just stalking his prey at the moment. And that SimSpeed livered car.
It's looking promising for Stevens because his lap times are actually registering here as official, so that would say to me that he does not have a penalty. He's just seeing another car off. That's Sam Fenwick. The Racing Sims car, I believe, is the wild card for tonight. So we'll see Sam out there having a drive.
Yep, absolutely. He's circulating around the track and still doing a very good job. One little off, doesn't matter. There's still a long way to go in this race for him to still get a potentially good result. As definitely good result for Stevens as well. If he does not have a penalty, it could also just be that, of course, the bad start for Burden just exaggerated the start that Daniel Stevens had, who runs extremely wide into the final corner, and I thought for a second almost opened the door to Henry King. So that battle for the race lead is not over at all just yet. Henry King, that lap around, was a 10.5 faster and well in the draft and later on the brakes as well as Henry King. So he's in a good position here, and there could be a very nice fight indeed for the lead and third place. So these drivers separating themselves out just a little bit, but still plenty going on.
100%, a lot going on, and another big lock up there for Stevens. So he's starting to struggle a little bit with brake bias, and he'll probably be looking at adjusting that throughout. Making sure that you stay on top of that can be very, very crucial. And tell you what, look at the focus he's got going on. He's well and truly eyes forward, not worrying too much about what Henry King's doing behind him.
No, not at all, of course. If you're looking forward, well, that's the direction you'll probably end up going, and that's the only way he wants to go in this race at the moment. He has just edged the gap out a little bit over this lap, so clearly a bit more confidence now. He just needs to sort the braking out. You see, again, not really stopping the car. We would like him in that final corner, but nonetheless, he'll lead on for another lap.
Just through there is Gilbert on Spriggs, so that is positional change. P3, P4, swapping around.
So, virtual racing score replay, we'll find out where exactly this little pass has taken place. You can see on board with Gilbert now, who runs in third place, but wasn't at the time of this. Through the right-hander, through the left again. What is going to happen here? You can see plenty of smoke trails up in front. Maybe just put the driver of Jason Spriggs off a little bit. So you got a very poor exit, and I reckon this is going to happen into the final corner. A much better run, late on the brakes as well. That was a very authoritative move from Gilbert, but put it off, and very easily too.
100%. That's a great move from Aaron Gilbert there to get that done. So up into P3, and he's already started to pull a gap. He's already nearly a second clear of Spriggs, who's now got Blake Delaney not too far behind him. So Spriggs could also be struggling a little bit with tyre temperature and things like that too, because we know that the tyre wear can be quite aggressive in these things, especially if your car hasn't been set up great for race conditions. So that could be something that Spriggs is starting to struggle with now, as Delaney starting to close in that gap very, very quickly.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Of course, when you think to the ZBs and the Mustangs that we're racing in the main SCOPS series at the moment, those cars have been, very fine-tuned. Everyone's got the most out of them. They know exactly how to set the cars up for tyre wear performance and long-run pace. Yes, these cars were run for a very long time in iRacing, but they've had a lot of changes made to them, and they haven't really been run in the last 2 years or so. So for these cars, they're perhaps not as optimized as what you would see in the main SCOPS series. These drivers may be facing entirely different challenges to what you would see in the main SCOPS series, where tyre wear could be a lot worse, fuel consumption could be worse, or just general ride of the car could be worse as well, with everything not being as refined. So these drivers at the moment definitely have a lot on their plate to work out around this circuit. You can see this battle continues to rage on. No way through there at the moment for Blake Delaney, but he is haunting the back of Jason Spriggs right now, who is looking to struggle just a little bit. It did a 105.0 in practice, a 105.0 in qualifying as well, but in the race so far he's been a little bit hit and miss with his best lap at a 5.9, so perhaps race conditions just where Jason Spriggs is struggling a lot more, as we see a nice little battle happening here in towards turn number 1. Anthony Green not able to make the pass happen from Simon Vella there, but nonetheless this is a nice little scrap. There's a big lock up there from Anthony Green in the background as well, working his way through the very tricky turns 1 and 2.
Simon Vella with a little bit of damage from that lap 1 incident as well. So he, Burden, and I believe it was Gilbert that potentially all had a little bit of contact there. Just seeing Reece Harnell's having some technical issues, so he's dropped out as well. Unfortunate, so hopefully he'll be back for the next race. But yeah, Vella doing a very, very nice job, and he's already broken away from Green with that move on the front straight. Mazomo not too far off these guys as well. He's in a tight little fight here with Tregarthen and Coleman.
Yeah, definitely at the moment. You can see he's working pretty hard against these drivers, just trying to hold on as Tregarthen continues to hunt the back of the Tech Sense Fixed Motorsports Commodore. So onto the front straight, but a much better exit from Mazomo. So you think he'd be nice and safe in towards turn 1 this time. But Tregarthen has been running about a 10.5 a lap faster than Mazomo over the last few laps. So definitely a lot more pace in the 0.35 compared to the 0.51. So look for a pass to happen at least sometime in the near future, because unfortunately for Simon Mazomo, there's still 29.5 laps to go. There's a long way left in this race, so at the moment you'd be feeling pretty confident if you're Nathan Tregarthen.
100%. Looks like he's a little bit more controlled in the pace of the car, and I know that Mazomo said he was struggling a little bit with the car as well, so he'll probably be wondering how the car's going to perform later on in this race too, because of course once you start the race set up, you can't really adjust too much, and if the car's not behaving as you want it to early on in the race, it can usually be exacerbated the longer the race goes on. If you're mentally thinking about that as well, that can actually haunt you even if the car isn't as bad as you're thinking, because you're mentally thinking about how bad the car is. It makes you perform worse.
Absolutely. That's something a lot of people don't understand, is just how much of a mental sport this actually is. So much of it is what your headspace is thinking and what your confidence is. And speaking of confidence, Nathan Tregarthen is not lacking any of it. Unfortunately, lacking a bit of mid-corner pace as the car gets around him, and he's going to have to defend from David Coleman in towards turn number 3, who's also late on the brakes. Tregarthen a bit too late. Is there an opportunity here for Coleman? They run side by side into turn number 4. Still got the overlap as Coleman, who runs it through the grass, but the exit speed should be there with Nathan Tregarthen to hold on. So that went from an attack to a defense really quickly, and going back to mental strength, that is a hard thing to do, to go from, going for a big aggressive overtake on a driver to mentally, oh no, I have to defend here.
It's something you sort of have to think about when you're trying to make a move when you're in a 3-car battle. If you're in a 2-car battle, it's probably not quite as severe, but when you're in those 3-car groups, if you're that middle car and looking to make a move, you've really got to nail it, because as you said, you're going from attack to defense all in the same move if you don't get it pulled off. So it makes the move 2 times, 3 times more important to get it done, because much easier to attack the driver ahead than it is to defend the guy behind. The guy behind's also got nothing to lose if you're in a 3-car fight, so he's going to go for it a little bit more, as there's a little bit of a lock up there for Delaney. So battle at the front is getting quite tight and quite close. Henry King's not letting Daniel Stevens break away at the front.
No, he's not at all. You can see it is very close between these drivers. Henry King still attacking at the moment against the likes of Daniel Stevens, working their way up through the crest. How is this going to pan out for Henry King, as he is late on the brakes, just overruns the corner a little bit there, so that's unfortunate for him. But Daniel Stevens leads on for yet another lap. He's been in control of this race since the very start, but Henry King continues to hunt him down. You can see that lap around, basically matching lap times.
Yeah, almost identical for 105.7 for both of them. They're a long way faster than everyone else, except for Simon Vella. Simon Vella, the only car out on track faster than these two at the moment. Henry King doing the fastest lap of the race, but Vella is probably the only driver at the moment that's out of sequence from what his actual pace is. So interesting to see how he goes if he can perform a little bit better in race 2. He's closing in quite quickly on Delaney, so he might be able to get himself up into that 4th place battle in the next couple of laps too. We've just lost Bo for a few seconds, so we'll continue on without him, but at the moment still Stevens, King, Gilbert, Spriggs and Delaney, a top 5 is just running off the circuit. There's Sam Fenwick. A little minor moment there. Gets it back going in the right direction. Blake Delaney now right behind Jason Spriggs, not quite close enough to get this move done yet. You can see Simon Vella there closing that gap down. As we said, it's definitely a lot quicker. Last lap by half a second faster, and this lap already is closing in around about 2 or 3 tenths of a second. So Simon Vella will be in this fight, making a true 3-car battle in the next couple of moments. This is going to be very, very interesting to see this fight unfold as well. front of the field, that's Daniel Stevens just pulled out just to a second. So little mistake, I believe, from Henry King. Shane Best also has a little bit of a moment back in the field, but Spriggs now really on the defence from Delaney. Will he be able to hold on? Question right now. Hopefully we've got Bo back now.
Fingers crossed.
There we are.
With technical difficulties every now and then with the beautiful Geelong internet. But nonetheless, we are back and on board with Jason Spriggs in towards turn 1 and 2, hard on the brakes. And he's still in this big battle group at the moment. He is not getting any relief from the pressure behind as he continues at the moment to work his way in towards turn number 3.
And Simon Vella right in it now, so it's well and truly a 3-car fight. This is where, as we were just saying before, with Tregarthen and Coleman, that Delaney's the one that has to be careful here. If he wants to get this move done, he has to do it before Vella's close enough to him. Otherwise, Vella will just get straight on by, and with the pace that Simon Vella's got, I think he's going to blitz on by them anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity as his pace has been so strong over the last few laps, just closing and showing that the pace is there. You can see he started in 5th, did fall back just a little bit, but when he's not locking the inside front left corner, he's definitely lapping at a very nice pace there, despite the damage on his car. So it's really just a matter of time until that KFC livered car works onto the back of the group in front.
Yeah, he won't be behind for too much longer, I wouldn't think. But Delaney not quite able to get through. He's definitely working the car a lot more than Spriggs is. Spriggs looks a little bit more controlled, but he just doesn't have the pace that the guys behind him have at this stage. So while he had that great launch off the line, getting up into P3, going to be a big defensive drive from Spriggs for the rest of this one, I think.
So Spriggs still got plenty of pressure at the moment, working his way through. And you can see there, just the car behind just not able to close in the way he would like and running a very wide line there through that little section. So Blake Delaney has a little bit of work to do and just tidying up a few little lines around this corner to really launch a challenge on Jason Spriggs at the moment, who has been falling back a little bit throughout this race. Of course, did find his way all the way up into 2nd, I believe, at one point. But it's just been falling back ever since the start of the race. Lost that battle between Stevens and Henry King early on, and then got passed by Gilbert as well. So Brooks had a bit of a tough run over the last few laps, but trying to make a bit of an attack now against, well, trying to make a bit of a defense, I should say, against Delaney just isn't really happening. He's just not able to break away and get himself into a nice clean air where he's not thinking about other cars. This entire race so far, Spriggs has been involved in some kind of battle.
100%. He was defending from Gilbert for so long, and then after Gilbert got through it, was almost 2 or 3 laps and he was back on the defence again. So Spriggs has been holding on for pretty much the entirety of this race, and another lock up for Spriggs. That corner there seems to be the one that Spriggs is having the most trouble at.
Yeah, it's not really working for him at the moment. You can see not much confidence over the rise as well. You can see constantly losing time to Delaney behind. So there's got to be something in that setup at the moment that's just not working in the high-speed sections of the lap. Because clearly, in a section where you wouldn't usually think about the car balance all too much, really struggling at the moment in the 14 car. So Delaney closes up well and truly as look at this for the race lead. Almost contact shoving between the likes of Stevens and King. Side by side, there we go. It's King on the outside who goes for a beautiful crossover. Big wheel spin from Stevens, and that was beautifully executed there. But how about a crossover on your crossover? Henry King's done enough races in his time. He knows how to defend, and he will defend and get himself into the race lead. Started 4th, got himself in the 2nd early on, and now on lap number 17, halfway of the race just about, finds his way into the race lead. So a very nice job indeed as he gets a little bit crossed over the elevation change there. But Daniel Stevens now is going from the defender to the aggressor, and what can he do? Because he's looked to be struggling just a little bit over the last few laps. So we go to a virtual racing school replay and check out this glorious pass once more.
Yeah, they're side by side coming through turn 1 as well. So they're side by side through 1, through 2, and through 3, and then beautiful crossover through turn 4, which we're about to see here with Henry King. Watch the move. He just broke a little bit earlier, forced a tiny little mistake there from Daniel Stevens. That's a beautiful pass. If you want to look up how to make a pass at Oran Park, that is how you do it.
Yep, textbook stuff there from the 52. And that is exactly how you need to do it. So, like you say, that is exactly how a pass at Oran Park should be. And good respectful racing too between these two guys. Of course, they've all done plenty of races between each other. And definitely a lot of respect there as well. No real contact, just leaning on each other just a little bit. And some very good racing that I'm sure is not over in this race just yet. Daniel Stevens, not a driver who likes to give up all too easily, as you can see by that braking zone alone. He was very close to the back of the 52. Didn't get the exit that he would have liked. But if you think this battle is over for just a second, you are totally wrong, as they continue working their way through for yet another lap. At the moment, third place Aaron Gilbert, he's wanting to make a bit of a challenge on these guys at the moment, but the pace is so close between them all, he really can't do anything. He's just sort of stuck matching the lap times of the top two.
Exactly right. He's struggling to match for pace, so he it's been quicker a few laps, as you said, because of the fighting and stuff like that. It's been quicker, but I think now he's probably going to fall back again. These two will probably work together to try and bridge that gap a little bit, and then they'll start fighting again when they know they're safe. They're very, very intelligent drivers, these two, so you can see Daniel Stevens, he's working that gear shifter, isn't he? Giving it a very, very hard workout. Watch the aggression on it when he goes through the downshift. It's been nice and soft and gentle now.
Yeah, he's heard you. Yeah, that's perfect, Jay.
He was really aggressive when he was coming up.
Sure he was, Jay.
There he goes.
Sure,
that was a bit aggressive. Now he's back to gentle. It must be that first to second that he's really aggressive on.
Yeah, no one's a fan of first gear. It's too much wheel spin. So, you know, just smash it out, get rid of it, and get it on. As he will continue fighting his way through, attacking Henry King, who was a little bit wide into turn number 1. Plenty of smoke shows from these drivers. They're not afraid to lock that inside front left corner into turn number 1. The battle for position 4 at the moment has died down just a little bit, as Briggs just holding off Delaney, and Delaney sort of run out of steam a little bit here. And the issue with that is you look behind him, and that car of Simon Vella at the moment just getting closer and closer and closer. We said he was catching before. Now he's really starting to catch, but actually, the fastest of those 3 cars of the last lap was actually Spriggs. So he's responded a bit as we get a little look there at Josh Burden, who is still recovering at the moment and trying to make something of his race. But yeah, Spriggs has now all of a sudden been able to turn the switch around on Delaney. He's up to the pace, and Delaney's not being able to go with him. So actually what's happened is Simon Vella is all over the gearbox of the 08 car at the moment as they work their way over the crest. What can Simon Vella do here? This is the first time in a while he's really been close enough to launch an overtake.
Yeah, and he'll be trying to get the momentum. That run out of the final corner can definitely help you get a move done into turn 2, but I don't think he's quite close enough at the moment. He's trying to use the draft, but it's not quite strong enough. So he's going to have to try and work it somewhere else around the lap, but it just doesn't look like his car's strong enough. And I must say, Spriggs definitely isn't strong through turns 1 and 2, and as we said before, the flip-flop. But this middle section looks like he's starting to be a little bit more confident with. He's definitely got the car set up and looks the smoothest out of the 3, but just hasn't got the overall pace to be able to put the lap together. Through those faster corners, he's not quite as comfortable. Through here, he looks quite good.
Just had a little bit of a look at the track map at the moment, and the wind direction is perfectly in the wrong spot to help Simon Vella with a slipstream towards turn number 1. The wind direction blowing between turns 3 and 4 towards that direction, which is not a headwind, and it's not a tailwind, down into towards turn number 1. So he's going to have to get a pass happening somewhere else, and maybe the final corner is the way to do it. As you can see, both of them running very odd lines there, and Vella almost in the wall on the exit. He wanted the run. He's actually got a slightly worse run than Delaney, but now the slipstream of what there is of it is going to take into effect. What can he do in towards turn 1 and 2? You can see he brakes nice and early. Is that a bit of an attempt at a run in towards turn number 2? It won't happen this time around. In fact, very cautious on the entry with Simon Vella of going up maybe too quick into the corner and getting into the back of Delaney, but that was very conservative after what I thought may have been an attack.
Pit stop here for Nathan Tregartha. It's coming into the lane, so not sure around that one. We'll find out soon enough as to what's happening there for him. front with King and Stevens still continuing on as it was. Daniel Stevens definitely is applying the pressure right now. He's trying hard to get this back, but just not quite able to get the run at the right spot to get anything happening.
No, he's not, but last lap he was roughly 0.2 of a second quicker, so he is doing whatever he can. You see late on the brakes, it looks like he's going for a move, but not quite close enough to really launch an assault just yet at this point in time. So he's still haunting and lurking, and sometimes that's what you need to do. If you don't have the pace to actually pass the driver in front, maybe you can just sit under their rear wing, just haunt them, pressure them, and maybe get them to make a little bit of a mistake, like running wide through turn number 4, and get an opportunity that way. No way past in towards turn number 5. But again, Henry King just needs to defend a little bit harder than he'd perhaps like as he works his way now through the dogleg. But he's making mistakes now, so this just, keeping the pressure on Henry King is actually working for Daniel Stevens here, because you can see Henry not running the racing lines he'd usually like.
Exactly right. He doesn't look comfortable. And here we go. A little bit of a move. There was there contact between the two there? I don't think there was. I think King just opened the door a little bit. But what that's done, it's meant he's been able to get the momentum out of the corner. But this battle's going to go all the way to the end. 15 laps to go. These two are going to fight for these 15 laps too.
They absolutely are, as there's a slow car just in front. Corey Kitchen, I think this is second off for the race. So they're just rejoining in front of these guys, so he won't get in the way. He would be up to speed in that time. But a little bit of a moment there in towards turn 1 and 2 for him. So not being the race he'd be hoping for, but thankfully there is another opportunity in race number 2 in a few moments' time as well. But yeah, Henry King is definitely under fire here. He's not leading this comfortably. This is definitely a big workout and effort from him at the moment, holding on to this lead, and to hold on for another 14.5 laps against the pressure Stevens is putting up at the moment, that would be quite a feat indeed. So they work their way through and towards the final few sequence of corners, and for the first time this race, they will end up having a little bit of traffic to deal with. I'm sure Corey Kitchen will get out of the way nice and early, but Henry King, he has to make sure he hits this move perfectly.
Exactly right. He needs to make sure that he gets some momentum, and Kitchen's actually bringing it into the pits. So that's the easy way to get out of a battle, just drive into the pit lane. The other thing with that, though, is that pit lane entry can be quite dangerous, so they've got to be a little bit careful. If guys come in the pits, big lock up from King, will he hold on? Yes. Anyway, that's nerve-wracking when you see the lead car have a big lock up at turn 1, because they can quite easily just continue straight ahead at turn 2.
From my experience, that's the fastest way to go through turn 1 and 2. I'm not sure I've ever gone through that section of corners without the wheel locked up and smoking away. As Henry King definitely running plenty of front brake bias. You can see it's not just turn 2 where he's locking up. Just about every corner he's finding a way to, just get a little bit of a puff out of that inside front corner whenever he's loading it up. So definitely a very front-centered car from HJR at the moment. And not seeing Daniel Stevens do that as much. So maybe a bit more rearward there on the VF Commodore as they work their way through the section. So two different approaches and setup there, and tell you what, Daniel Stevens' car might be a little bit worse with the high speed as well. Not afraid to get the tail end out.
100% right, and he's definitely got the car looking like it's a lot more balanced in that aspect, doesn't he? He's just brake bias seems to be a little bit more controlled, and he's seeming as though that he is almost waiting and trying to hope that Henry King makes a mistake. I don't think he's going to be able to get through unless there is a mistake from King, just based on how things are playing out at the moment.
Well, absolutely, as a car off the grass just in front of them, Shane Best will stay in the gravel and not get in the way there, so they will both find a way past. As, like you say, Daniel Stevens may need a mistake to make anything happen. The one driver that doesn't need a mistake to make a pass happen is Simon Vella, who is still haunting the back of Delaney, although they have both begun to catch Jason Spriggs in front once again. So Spriggs did have a little bit of a breakaway for a little while, but Delaney and Vella have been able to close him back up, and these guys are really sort of strong in different ends of the lap. You can see on one part of the lap, Delaney definitely looks a lot stronger than the likes of Spriggs and Vella, but on the other section of the lap, Vella definitely looks stronger as well. So these drivers, perhaps a little inconsistent in their driving or just setup, is creating some very weird opportunities as the wall comes at you very quickly on the outside there, as Vela does get overlapped, but it is a long way around the outside here. He goes for a crossover move, does he? Defended by Delaney, so they will hold on to their spots there, but a bit crossed up on the gravel on the inside there. Can he get the exit? No, he cannot. So these drivers going to stay in the positions they were for yet another few corners, but a very interesting little battle here as the drivers definitely showing their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, they both look like they've got very different strengths and weaknesses too, don't they? You just see Best having another little off there just ahead of these guys, so it's going to make it very, very interesting now. They're actually side by side, and the lap car there of Shane Best unintentionally is going to help Simon Valla get that move done. Oh.
Very close indeed between all of these guys. You can see Delaney, the big loser there. He was on the outside, and unfortunately, that's where the lapped car was. Oh, he's going to go straight through the grass just about over the elevation change. That was a big wiggle on entry. Lucky to not bin the car there, but he'll get away with it. As this battle for the lead raging on as well, and I'm assuming there's cars in there somewhere. All I see is smoke as they both launch their way into turn number 2 on that particular occasion, working their way through once again. These guys closing up against one another, but not able to launch any attacks at the moment. So for the moment, the field goes just a little bit quiet, apart from the battle I'm noticing for 10th place at the moment, although that has just been given away by Nathan Tregarthen, and he's got the position on this particular lap ahead of Sam Fenwick. So Fenwick unfortunately loses that 10th spot, and we'll have to try and hunt down Tregarthen and get it back.
Yeah, of course, Tregarthen's come in and made a pit stop in this one as well. I love the two-wheel action up over the hill there. So Fenwick up to 11th, was in 10th, as I said, and doing a very, very good job. He had a couple of offs earlier on, but laps have been a lot more consistent for him at this stage of the race. Right, he'll be continuing to push on. Coleman has dropped off from that battle that he was in with Anthony Green and Simon Mazzomo, and Green has also dropped from Mazzomo. Mazzomo, interestingly enough, is catching that group of Delaney and Valla and Spriggs now, as well as he's got that spot on Anthony Green.
Yeah, absolutely. Some very good pace at the moment from Simon Mazzomo. Just quickly, I'm seeing that Nathan Tregarthen has been given a black flag for contact with car 136. 136 being Corey Kitchen, who we did see off the road just a few moments ago. So definitely something happened there that we've missed between those two. So Tregarthen may be in the fault there in that incident we saw where Corey Kitchen was off at turn number 2. So that's a shame there, and you know, of course that was before his pit stop, so he's not taken a penalty just yet. But Nathan Tregarthen's night maybe gets a little bit worse after what was seeming like a promising night starting in 8th.
Just trying to find out from race control what lap that was. We might be able to get a replay up. So if my little replay machine might actually work for a change. Tregarthen comes in and serves that penalty.
Fingers crossed as we go back, and yeah, Blake Delaney's pace has definitely dropped off quite a lot recently. Of course, Spriggs and Vella continue raging on in their battle, but Delaney losing a lot of time at the moment. It was a 106.3 that particular lap, so he did actually respond compared to Simon Mazzomo, but yeah, last few laps have not been good to Delaney as Simon Vella continues to hunt the back of Jason Spriggs. Of course, he was in 3rd for so long, was Simon Vella in this little group, now running in 2nd in this particular fight. So now he's not going to attack and defend at the same time. He can just focus entirely on getting past Jason Spriggs.
Exactly right. He can actually try and work this position and get this spot. So I'm just trying to find out from race control the exact lap number so we can get a replay up. But unfortunately, the race control guys are having a couple of tech issues themselves tonight, so may not be able to get that for a replay up. But this little fight here, very, very feisty, and Valla, as we've said a few times, he is definitely quicker, but just continually making mistakes, isn't he?
Yeah, it's not been a consistent drive at this point in the race for Jason Spriggs or Simon Vella. They've both had slightly scrappy runs of it at the moment, but what it has ended up is a very unique fight between these guys. We're now working, or fighting for a top 4 or 5 spot in this race. So while, the racing lines haven't been on point and they've made a few little errors between each other, they are going to get a very good result out of this. So there is a lot to play for here. They can't afford to take it too easy in these next 7.5 laps. There is still so much that is available in terms of points and more. You go to a virtual racing score replay and work out what exactly has happened here between these guys. So Corey Kitchen, we're looking at the moment. You can see Tregarthen just behind him towards turn number 1. Big dive up the inside, gets balked a little bit, this Kitchen, and a little bit of contact there in the middle. I'd love to get an onboard look from Tregarthen as well, just to see where the nose placement of that car was in towards turn number 2, as it did look a little bit borderline, as you obviously saw that Corey Kitchen was a little bit balked. Yeah, Corey Kitchen was balked by the car on the outside. That's an interesting call, in my opinion.
I agree. It's, as long as the calls are consistent, we're okay with that. So nothing against the call. It's one of those ones where you could go, yes, definitely a penalty, or you can also go, no, there's definitely not a penalty. But those are the ones that you're okay with as long as they stay consistent throughout the season. So precedent is set there. As long as that continues, I think we're okay with that.
Yep, absolutely. As Simon Vella lights it up in the grass, yes, in his hunt of Jason Spriggs, this battle just refuses to go away. They've been locked all race long, as have the likes of Henry King and Daniel Stevens. The gap between them is 0.4 of a second at the moment. Stevens just not ever close enough. He's still haunting, but Vella and Spriggs, the gap between them is 0.5 of a second, so equally close.
Yeah, not long left in this race either. So 7 to go now. 6 to go when they cross the line as they start lap number 33. And the laps go by very, very quickly. The race pace has been pretty decent from the drivers too. So we've got around about 0.6 of a second, their best lap off qualifying pace. And at the moment, their pace is around about 1.5 seconds off qualifying pace. So it's been pretty quick driving and pretty quick going for the drivers out there. But this is the point of the race where the concentration can start the laps. You can see the checkered flags not far away. That's where mistakes can start to come in, and these little intense battles that are going on, like we're seeing right here, are where you can start to see mistakes happening.
Well, if there's anyone we can afford to give a little bit of a ribbing when they go off, it's this guy, Simon Mazzomo. What have you done, Mr. Mazzomo? Virtual racing score replay up on the screen. Down at turn 1 and 2, and he's been involved in a fight with Nathan Tregarthen, I believe. Is that maybe potentially? Not entirely sure, but he's under a bit of pressure here, so we can forgive him for a little bit of an error if he has done it by himself. And that is a lot of speed in towards turn 1 and 2. A little bit too deep on the brakes, loses it on the rear brakes and just swings around on him. So no damage given by anyone there. His car is more than free to rejoin in the race, no harm done. But a little bit of a heart attack there, I'm sure, for Mez.
Positive thing to take out of it, didn't lose a spot.
Apart from the one to Tregarthen.
Well, Tregarthen is a lap down though, of course, so... It wasn't even a fight, it was just a mistake that he lost himself a lot of track position. Of course, he was closing up. Blake Delaney was only 4 seconds back not that long ago. He's now up to 13, so that's pretty much done for Mez getting a spot. But I tell you what, it's not done for Vella. He is applying the blowtorch right now to Jason Spriggs.
Yep, he's not giving up on this one at all, is he? He's got 4.5 laps to do something with it, but what is that something he's going to do? I feel like he's tried just about everything at this point in time. There's a poor exit from Spriggs. Maybe left an opening up the inside there, but Vella just being a little bit more cautious, waiting his time. Time is running out. You have to eventually go for a bit of a move. You can see, look at that. He has so much more confidence in the car over that rise there. He actually had to jump on the brakes to avoid going into the back of Jason Spriggs. He was just suffering a little bit over that little rise, so not usually a place you'd see the drivers applying the brakes, but nonetheless, Simon Vella, with good reaction time, manages to avoid any kind of contact and plays it safe towards turns 1 and 2 as well. I say plays it safe, as we have our first little bit of contact between these two, so rather than playing it safe, maybe this is the point now where Simon Vella is just starting to get the bull bar out a little bit.
I'm actually wondering if Vella, what he could do to get this move done is actually back off a little bit and use that instability for Spriggs through. Oh no!
Oh, instability, you were saying?
Yeah, use this instability for Spriggs through the flip flop and get the momentum and the run there. But Vella making that error, and now he's got Delaney coming on very, very quickly. I don't even think Vella realised he was coming.
Oh, here we go, and there's a bit in the grass there as well. Delaney around the outside gets the move done, although he overshoots a little bit. Can Vella get this one immediately back? Of course, Delaney had been struggling for a little bit there, and look at the car wriggle around over the elevation change there. So Delaney now is going to have to defend from Simon Vella. We thought it was Vella with Spriggs to the end of the race, but never mind, we've got our battle that we had a little bit earlier in the race. We have round 2 of it indeed, as Vela in the draft now and towards turn 1 and 2. I think too far back to go for a move this time around, but Vela won't be happy about that one.
100%, he'll be ruining that mistake, and he'll be upset that he's made that one, but he'll have to try and work a way to get that spot back. Interesting at the front too, Daniel Stevens' pace has dropped off big time. Last lap by, he was around about 2 seconds slower than Henry King. So, pace is well and truly born out of that number 3 car. 3 laps to go though, anything could happen. Henry King may not have checked his fuel gauge. Daniel Stevens might be looking at his.
Yeah, absolutely. We have seen drivers take pit stops. Of course, we weren't expecting any in this race, but maybe they saw something a little bit earlier that the likes of King and Stevens did not. Nonetheless, Stevens' pace is pretty much staying around 3 seconds behind King at the moment. So maybe he has realised that fuel is okay as Vela. It's a little bit out of shape there, but nonetheless, we'll keep it on the track. But yeah, last lap around, Stevens 0.2 of a second slower than Henry King. So he is losing time, but not at the rate he was before. So I think Stevens will be all good to the end of the race and shouldn't lose any spots, the likes of Aaron Gilbert behind. But nonetheless, a great drive from Henry King so far to get that lead out to 3.5 seconds now and continue pushing around. For Simon Vela, no, time is really running out now. He has to do something to make this pass happen because he's been stuck behind drivers all race long and really not been able to do anything with it as he gets to the grass again. Big wiggle.
Just making these really, really minor errors, isn't he? And they're just coming at the wrong time. Just one wheel in the grass, 2 wheels in the grass, just the wrong point of the circuit, causing huge headaches for him as he's now almost out of passing range. White flag in the air though. Barney getting a shoulder workout. Henry King 3.2 second advantage now. And Daniel Stevens can't afford, as Shane Best off the circuit, Daniel Stevens can't afford a mistake because he isn't too far away from having Aaron Gilbert closing in on his rear wing.
Yeah, Stevens isn't losing too much time to Henry King, but at the moment Aaron Gilbert is really punching in some very nice laps indeed. So he's actually the aggressor at this point in time. He does have Shane Best just in front. He may impede him just a little bit of a wiggle there as well. But those Henry James racing cars looking very strong at the end of the race, which will be very good information for Daniel Stevens. And you know, maybe he'll take a bit of camber out of the rear, just save rear tires for the next race or something. But good information for Stevens nonetheless, just to look at and think, okay, these HJR cars have something figured out, because one car's in third and the other is rounding the final corner to take victory in the first of our 2 races. Dominant drive in the end from Henry King. Starts fourth, got his way into second, got into first, and then never looked back. It's going to be a 1-3 for HJR, with Daniel Stevens splitting the middle between them. This battle still raging on as Vela gets 2 wheels in the grass, has a shot at it but can't quite do it. Blake Delaney will win in that particular fight. Spriggs will finish in 4th, Delaney in 5th, and Vela in 6th as the rest of the field streaks on through.
Yeah, Mazzomo, Green and Coleman will all finish on the lead lap, but great job for Henry King. Aaron Gilbert, P1, P3 for the team. The new silver bullets, a new livery for these guys for tonight. Jinx shifter liveries, so they look pretty cool too, so they'll be quite happy with the win on debut. And Daniel Stevens in as a wild card for this round for Gavin Cox, who's unable to race tonight. He has jumped in, and I'll tell you what a super sub. He's done a great job. Yeah,
absolutely. Some really nice points there for the team. And if you're going to get a substitute, you may as well get one who's competitive as well. So great effort there from all involved as the rest of the drivers finish their final laps. And we will get our results up on screen in just a few moments' time as Henry King does take the victory in a Ford. Ahead of a Holden, ahead of a Ford, ahead of a Holden. So the rivalry is still strong in these Australian touring cars. Daniel Stevens is the first of our Commodores, and second, ahead of Aaron Gilbert, who rounds out our podium. Jason Spriggs is in 4th, who won his little fight in particular against the likes of Delaney and Vela, who come home 5th and 6th respectively. Mazzomo with a bit of a scare late in the race, but nonetheless gets away with it to finish 7th. Anthony Green in 8th, ahead of David Coleman, Nathan Tregarthen, who took a pit stop.
Yep, took a pit stop and a penalty, so he had 2 trips down pit lane. Then we got Fenwick in position 11. Then we got Shane Best finishing in 12th. The rest of our drivers had all sorts of issues. Burden, Kitchen, Harnell all had issues throughout the race, and Nick Scrayev did not take to the start. Ben Christensen sat in the race control booth and only had to make one decision throughout that race. Of course, the start of the race was a little bit controversial, but no penalties needed for that one. It was just cars all coming together at the start with a not great launch from Josh Burden. He'll be looking to improve on that for race 2.
Yep, absolutely. Plenty of drivers, I think, looking for redemption in race number 2, so don't go away. There is plenty more coming on after this, but next up is the trucks.
Yeah, so we're using the VRS Direct Force Pro this year. We have a wheel adapter right here, so I'm using the rim I used last year, but the motor right here produces a lot of power, a lot of precision, and it helps me, just feel the car more, feel the car a lot quicker, especially, this week we're at Sonoma. I can feel it, when it hits the curbs, any little change in the car, the wheel reacts a lot quicker than your typical gear-driven or belt-driven wheel. For example, if you're on oval and the rear tires break loose, force feedback on it corrects a lot quicker than your typical wheels. There's no resistance pretty much as far as being able to make quick corrections on the wheel. So all that, paired with how precise the wheel itself is, it makes it to where it helps you as a driver, to find that extra hundredth or thousandths of a second. So when you're getting a direct drive wheel, especially the VRS wheel, it's heavy duty. It's got good weight to it, it's not a plastic toy. Feels like you can really beat up on it. A lot of people have issues with their plastic gear-driven wheels just kind of breaking after a couple years. This thing just feels like it can go forever. The forces are really strong where if you might have to let go of the wheel if you get into the wall. You can adjust all that with the settings on it and stuff, but the wheel itself doesn't play around. It's got way more strength than you could ever need, and that's what makes it good, that you can adjust that down to whatever the car needs. So initially you'll be able to get the controller box and the motor together, and eventually you will be able to add a rim onto that option. They'll also be including a button plate on it to put on the rim to have all sorts of different buttons and functionality. Also, pedals are coming, so that's a pretty big deal as well. Hasn't been covered too much, but the goal is to also have pedals to go along with the Direct Force Pro. So that's pretty exciting. The wheel feels good. It feels very much like a real world steering wheel. You just kind of feel like what you would imagine the car to feel like. A real steering wheel in a car is very smooth, it's very direct, very quick, and that's what this wheel feels like.
There's a story on this island. History lives here. If you listen closely, you can still hear the echo of a Dino, smell the petrol of a Carrera, feel the grace of an LP. In those days, lives were lost and fortunes were won in the blink of an eye. It's no longer that simple in today's world. But on an island, it's almost as if time stands still. Honoring the past by racing into the future. Motorsport, it's in our DNA.
Hey everyone, the USF 2000 is a blast to drive now, and here's your chance to learn it quickly. From my tutorial, VRS created a free bonus track guide for the Laguna Seca circuit, where you can learn exactly what I do in every corner to improve your lap times and get faster on track. You'll learn how to easily recognize brake markers, you'll find out which curbs to attack and which ones to avoid, you'll know when to use the full track and when a sequence of corners requires a compromise. And you'll learn how hard to brake and when to lift. The VRS quick reference track maps are available free to download and delivered each week to your inbox. The entire global MX-5 series is available, as well as bonus maps like this one and many more. So if you're a new racer, or a veteran, or just anyone who wants to learn how to get faster sooner, the VRS track guides are for you. Just hit the link or button on screen and get yours today.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rhythm, both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Six very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Well, we are back, but this time in some slightly different machinery. It's back for the V8SCOPS support series here at Oran Park for round number 2 for these particular trucks. But it is going to be some very interesting racing indeed. Already in qualifying, we're seeing plenty of drivers abusing track limits, having a little bit of fun, slipping and sliding sideways in what is now a very hot track indeed. 52 degrees track temp. Jay, these trucks are going to be working around here.
100%, and track conditions not the best for these guys at the best of times. I mean, they're designed for dirt, so they don't like being on the road a great deal, but they do also provide great racing when they are on the road. We've seen some great racing in this series and also in the Pro Truck Showdown, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it does play out, the trucks in this one. And Oran Park in the past has been an interesting circuit for these things, so yeah, we'll see how track limits get abused and how the drivers handle the tight, twisty nature of this circuit.
I do remember doing the Just Send It race around here in the trucks when we ran them here, and I seem to remember being on my lid for the most part, so that should give you some idea of either A, my driving talent, or B, what these drivers are going to be facing over the 10-minute race that we have coming up. We're in qualifying at the moment, and a staggering 2 trucks have set qualifying times at the moment, but of those 2, it is probably one of the favourites, I would say, in this particular series. Glenn Postlethwaite currently setting the pace. Very quick time indeed. There is plenty who are looking to try and stop his reign.
100%, and of course Postlethwaite won the round at Sebring and won it convincingly, so he'll be looking to go forward and capitalise again on this series and try and take the victory once again. His teammate in Brenton Hobson not here again tonight, so he'll have a little bit of a head start in that aspect, but still going to be very, very competitive throughout this field. It's a sort of vehicle that means that you end up having a tight competitive race with someone. It always means that you've got someone to battle and someone to race with. You may not see too many drivers actually set qualifying times in qualifying, but it still will mean that we're still going to have some very, very close racing.
Yep, definitely. We're going to have plenty of that in the races as well. That was a beautiful little slide there from Corey Kitchen, who spent a bit of time in the off-road in the previous race in the supercars, but at least he can actually do it in these particular trucks. They'll be a lot more tame around here. They'll be able to, handle a bit of off-roading, and that should be much more up Corey Kitchen's sort of alley. Is clearly Oran Park. Not being too nice to him at the moment, but still one more race in the supercars for him to turn his fortune around and make it a good night of racing for himself in the 136 truck. You can see on board sliding his way through turn number 3 at the moment, and it may look like that's a little bit too aggressive or slidey, but really that's how you have to drive these trucks to get lap time out of them, Jay.
100%. Good way to get temp into the tyres as well, of course. Treaded road tyres on these things, so getting temp into them, not the easiest thing, so absolutely abusing the tyres is the way to amplify your lap time as you continue on. So Kitchen maybe just running a little bit too aggressive there, but there's Dan Stevens backing up P2 in the last race, come back out, first lap time, puts it into P2. Of course, he's no stranger to these things as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm looking forward to seeing a bit of his wheel work during this particular event as well, with the amount of opposite lock going on from his drivers, and actually this lap I don't think will count for Corey Kitchen as he had a little bit of a wall tap on the wall there, or at least it was extremely close. And what do you know? No lap time recorded. So a bit too aggressive, but thankfully he still gets another crack at it. And we'll try and get a lap time on the board. 3 trucks have set lap times, but there'll be plenty more lining up for the grid in a few moments' time. And I think the reason we're not seeing many qualifying laps at the moment is because, quite simply, qualifying in these trucks doesn't matter. It's such an aggressive race.
Well, and it's so easy to do things like that, which of course negate your lap time. So banging and bashing into the wall is not too uncommon in these things. So Dan Stevens about to start another lap. That lap, of course, didn't count. If it did, probably wouldn't have been too bad, judging by the reaction when he hit the wall. We'll see what time he can do on this one. Trying to see if I can find out what the actual time was. About the same.
About the same? Well, there you go. At least we know he's consistent once again, as Nick Skaryev does get into the 19-second bracket as well. So he gets himself into a pretty nice lap time. And currently second row of the grid there for our SimSpeed favourite, as Glenn Postlethwaite actually has gone and improved this time just ever so slightly by another 1/10 and a half of a second. So just laying down the gauntlet to anyone else who wants to challenge him at the moment. The margin of pole at the moment is 2.4 seconds, which is very impressive indeed, as the clock is winding down and these trucks won't have very long to go at all in this qualifying session. If you're going to get a lap time on the board, you have to do it soon, as Dan Stevens has a big wiggle over the elevation change.
Yeah, I think he's decided that he's not going to get too much improvement on this one, and he'll have another crack. And saying that, you can see, well, I can see just in his time delta, he's up 2 and a bit tenths. So this time may be an improvement. 18.5, so it is an improvement, about 2 and a bit tenths. Not enough to beat Postlethwaite, but he's got a little bit of time to still do that. Sam Stride, another driver that is very, very familiar to these things, out on track in this series tonight as well.
Yep, the 42 truck doing a good effort at the moment. Hasn't got a lap on the board and won't get a lap on the board. Currently on lap 0, so this is an out lap. And unfortunately for him, the checkered flag has just flown. So no lap time here for Sam Stride, but experience in these cars does go a very long way indeed. So we'll see what he can do if he can work his way up the order, as we go up to 5 trucks with qualifying lap times. Reece Harnell will go and make that 6 of them now. So very good to see. We're getting at least a few times on the board. Few other drivers on a lap at the moment, one of which is Blake Delaney, who ends up in the grass and maybe invalidates his lap. Simon Zomo is on a lap as well, and he's a bit of a traitor at the moment, I have to say, because what doesn't strike him as a Fitzroy racing car.
He definitely has got a Torque Inc livery on for this series. He ran as part of the Torque Inc group when he was running in the Pro Truck Showdown, and still got that livery on, so does not register a lap time, but he'll use the remainder of this qualifying session to use it as a little bit more practice, because if you haven't raced these things on a road course for a little while, it's take a little bit to get the memory bank back going again with how these things behave.
Yeah, absolutely. They're definitely not a V8 supercar, and they're definitely not a GT car. They're definitely a breed of their own. Very unique cars to drive, and a driving style that is definitely unlike anything else. Even if you drive these things on dirt, it is doesn't quite compare to driving them on the asphalt. But nonetheless, we'll take a look at our starting grid for the racingsims.co.nz Trucking Legends event, and it is going to be Glenn Postlethwaite on pole position ahead of Daniel Stevens. So yet again, Dan Stevens will start towards the pointy ends of the field. Reece Harnell in 3rd, Aaron Gilbert in 4th, with Nick Skaryev rounding out our top 5 ahead of Blake Delaney, Anthony Green, and Corey Kitchen as the last of our drivers to register lap times. And then we do have a whole bunch of drivers who haven't set lap times. We're going to have a bit of fun anyway. Brett Loxton and Sean Thompson round out the top 10, with Ben Christensen, I'm assuming, on race control, but Simon Mazzomo, Sam Stride, and Henry King will be the rest of our drivers working their way through to make it what I believe a 13-truck grid. So plenty of trucks, plenty of action, but only 10 minutes to fit it in.
Yeah, 10 minutes will go by very, very quick as well. So probably going to be around about an 8-lap race for these drivers. What that will mean is there's not many corners for them to actually make the moves around this track. So looking forward to seeing how it does play out. Standing start as well will catch a few of these drivers out. Very, very tough to get these things off the line.
Yep, absolutely. There's plenty of horsepower and no traction control whatsoever. So all your launch is going to be done by your right foot. How you manage it, and how you can actually focus in the heat of the moment. Of course, it's so easy to do 100 practice starts in a row perfectly in practice, but the second those lights come on and you've got other cars around you, it is a whole different ball game, and it really does require a clear head to manage that perfectly and get the launch you hope to get and work your way off to a very strong start in this race. 20 seconds to go, and we'll get these trucks underway for their race. And it's going to be quite the race indeed. How are they all going to go through turns 1 and 2? Of course, these trucks move around a lot through little corners, and that little kink at the start of turn 1 and going into turn 2 could throw just a few drivers off. For the revs will begin to rise in just a few moments' time. Revs are up. And the lights are out. A long hold indeed for these trucks as they get themselves away. Great start from Possible Way, but 3 wide already in the background between the likes of Gilbert Delaney and Nick Skariev as well. Work their way through towards turn 1 and 2. How are they all going to go? Well, they're all going to make it. You can see some already in the dirt, but it's truck racing. It doesn't really matter. They're working their way through, and so far, that might be the cleanest truck race I've already ever seen.
100% agree. It's a very, very clean start. Not even too much elbowing going on. These guys, they haven't been watching Tuesday nights on SimSpeed, obviously. So just a little bit now we're starting to see the elbows out. It's Anthony Green getting absolutely hassled and pushed around, and he's dropped 2 spots, and now side by side with Mizomo. He's gone all the way back to 9th now.
Yeah, he's been shuffled down the order very quickly. So Green won't be too happy about that, but thankfully there's still plenty of time for him to get a little bit of a result as Green dives up the inside. Mizomo can't quite do anything about it as he slides the truck in all the degrees of angle, and it's going to go a little bit wrong. And I think he's going to get a horrible exit here, and Corey Kitchen is going to get crashed into.
And Corey Kitchen's probably been already sick of being crashed into. Oh, well, that was Sean Thompson there just saying, get out of my way. Probably, probably wasn't really Sean's fault there. Hashtag Sean's fault. Do you think that was Sean's fault? I did that well, didn't I?
That's definitely a throwback indeed, as we have plenty of trucks fighting away. Sam Stride going for a move at the moment on next Skariev. You can see all the trucks in front, all kinds of out of shape as they work their way through this very difficult braking zone. But they are being fairly well behaved by truck standards right now. I'm very confused as this little battle pack right now, including Mizomo, Stride, and Skariev, is very close with Stride with a big dive up the inside. Somehow no contact between the two as he slides his way through turn 3.
Yeah, this is bizarre not seeing contact through these sort of sections and how they're driving the things as well. So a little bizarre to see how clean it is. That was close between Stride and Skariev, and maintaining this little fight between them as well, which is great to see. And Mizomo with a real good look at what's going on, but not quite close enough to get involved in the fight just yet.
Yep, just haunting around in the background, looking for an opportunity. There's nothing forthcoming at the moment as Gilbert gets very sideways, and also Blake Delaney was right off into the grass there as well, so he was really sliding the truck around in this little battle pack of 3 cars, which goes all the way down to Reese Hardnell. So Reese trying to get a good run onto the start-finish straight, but not able to do so. But check out the likes of Brett Loxton and a bit further back, including Corey Kitchen and Sean Thompson, as they work their way down the front straight.
Yeah, there's a lot of smoke there too, so guys not scared to absolutely light up the rear wheels. 3 minutes already gone on the clock. Sean Thompson decides that turn 1 doesn't really matter. The only issue is he forgot to slow down enough for turn 2. Loses both spots to Loxton and Kitchen. Loxton through, and he's going to get 2 for 1.
Yeah, he's going to try to, but he's a bit deep on the brakes, and a crossover move is trying to happen here from Corey Kitchen. Lights it up in a wheel spin. Doesn't quite get the exit, so Corey Kitchen is going to slide it into turn 4, try and get the drive on Loxton, but Loxton's done a few wheel spin management classes in his day. He knows exactly how to get the power down, and he will hold on for a little bit longer as we go back up to this big fight at the moment on board Blake Delaney, who has a big gaggle of about 6 trucks behind him at the moment, all the way down Simon Mizomo in position number 8 at the moment. So these trucks are definitely in the battle pack at the moment and not able to break away from one another. Oh, big contact between Mizomo and Skariev.
Battle of the SimSpeed crew. And Skariev continues that spot, but Mizomo giving him a little bit of a love tap. Probably a little bit more than a love tap. but Mez will be trying to get through. But what that's done, it's meant that they've lost that group ahead. Sam Stride tries to make a move. Aaron Gilbert, he's not worried about track limits at the outside of turn 1 either, is he? He's just going out in the dirt, 2 wheels in the dirt, and using that to help him pull it up.
I mean, if you're trying to use the optimal racing line through turns 1 and 2, the idea is not to use the grass. But if you change your racing line to use the grass, you don't care if you run wide, do you? Because it's just going to be more dirt. So, you know, he's just sort of using the track to his advantage there and thinking, well, you know, I'm not going to bother trying to avoid the dirt. I'm just going to accept it and make it a part of my racing line at this point. And it seems to be working for him at the moment, as currently in P3 is Blake Delaney, and Aaron Gilbert, you know, just not able to really make any sort of moves. He's just sort of stuck there at the moment, as the top two have well and truly checked out. Glenn Postlethwaite's lead at a little bit over 4 seconds, and his gap then is back at around 3.6 seconds back to Delaney.
Just hearing that Brett Loxton has actually got an issue with his wheel, which is why he's having so much troubles back in the field. Does explain why there's a lot of wheel work and a lot of sideways action. He's got no weight in his wheel at all, no force feedback at all. Not too happy with how that's going. Great run from Aaron Gilbert. And Reese Harnell goes, no, don't worry about 2 wide. Let's make it 3 wide backed out of that.
And it was a big swipe to the left there from Gilbert, which really sort of just put off Reese Harnell. But Blake Delaney getting shuffled down the order now. He's a little run through the dirt. Isn't going to save him this time, as I think Nick Skaryev and Mr. San Mazomo may have came together again.
Definitely.
So no SimSpeed alliance there, is at the moment Delaney locking up the inside of Stride. Wasn't able to do anything there. So these guys are all going to continue fighting. And speaking of fighting, Stride tries again, almost barrels into the side of Harnell. And that's just allowing Gilbert to break away in this little fight at the moment. But Delaney is able to recover, get himself back into this fight, as Sam Stride and Reese Harnell continue scrapping away.
Sam Stride, Glenn Postlethwaite and Daniel Stevens all very, very familiar to this car. They race in the Pro Truck Showdown on Tuesday nights here on SimSpeed TV. Postlethwaite, championship winner not that long ago. Daniel Stevens, if you actually look at the side of Daniel Stevens' truck, you'll actually see that he's got a whole heap of sausage rolls on the side of his truck. Do you know what they're for? I believe you do, Bo.
I do. The amount of times I believe he has been rolled over in competition.
100%. And I believe it's over 15 odd now that he's up to. So we'll try and get a shot of it there. You can sort of see it under the door, under the net there. We'll get it on another shot. But I reckon that's pretty cool that he's added that, even though he's probably really frustrated with getting bumped and banged out of the way. Just accept it and embrace it, and he has.
Well, I mean, it's not a lot of sausage rolls, but it is a lot of rollovers in a car. So
100%.
Very unlucky run of fortune there, as Delaney and Reese Harnell continue side by side, as they have done just about every lap up to this point so far. I mean, these drivers to get a move on, because at the end of the day, there's only 2.5 minutes left in this race. It's gone by very quickly indeed. And Harnell and Delaney continue sliding the trucks around, but just keep scrapping amongst each other.
100%. They're just not making enough progress to move forward, and they've allowed Stride to get through, and now Stride is already on the back of Aaron Gilbert. Across the line, I believe it'll be 2 laps to go. Postlethwaite about to cross the line now, so there'll be 2 to go. Gilbert, is he going to be able to hold on from Sam Stride? I don't know. I think Stride's got enough pace that he might be able to get this one done.
Yeah, potentially. We'll see what how this develops between the two drivers. Of course, Gilbert currently running in 3rd and got a decent little margin back to the likes of... I've lost my timing screen. Very nice Sam Stride behind. No, Sam Stride. But, of course, Sam was 0.2 of a second quicker last lap around compared to Gilbert. So even though Gilbert does have that little advantage at the moment, Stride is coming in pretty decent pace as well. So this race should go for 2 more laps based on where the leader crosses the finish line. So let's say he keeps closing at 0.2 of a second. That means Sam Stride is within range of an overtake on the very last lap. So Gilbert can't get too content here.
100%. He's going to have to fight for this, and Sam Stride won't be too scared to try and make the move either. So it's going to be a very, very intense battle. That battle behind as well, still raging on, but not quite as intense as this one is. Delaney, Harnell, Skrayev, and Mizomo continue their fight. But this is where the action is going to be in the next couple of minutes. You can tell that something is brewing here. They'll get the white flag this time around. I think that there might be a little bit of a boxing match about to unfold between these two.
Yep, absolutely. Gilbert sliding his way through the final corner. Much better exit from Sam Stride in the slipstream. Get a look at the wind direction and see how useful it is. It's a tailwind, so it's not going to be too powerful of a slipstream, but it is enough to get the overlap in towards turn number 1. Late on the brake, slides it in. Gilbert in the dirt as well. But nice move nonetheless, and clears him in towards turn number 2. So fair racing at the moment, but with the white flag now out, how is this going to go on the final lap? Is Gilbert going to be just happy to sit behind? I think not.
I agree. I don't think he's happy about just being passed, let alone be happy about taking 4th position. So he's going to try and get this spot back, but not many corners left to do it. Postlethwaite not far away from finishing this race, so Strider's going to have to work really hard to get a move done. It's probably going to be the last corner. It's going to be his last chance. But Glenn Postlethwaite, no TV time, usually means a good race for you. Aussie, drifting.
Yeah, absolutely. And what else is there to do when you have an 8.5 second lead as he works his way into the final corner, nice and sideways, and will celebrate yet another victory. 2 from 2 in this series now for Posy, so very nice effort indeed as he extends his championship lead. Dan Stevens will come home in position number 2. And this battle for P number 3 and 4 is going to be settled in the favour of Sam Stride. He finishes ahead of Aaron Gilbert and Blake Delaney, who bounces off the wall. Also a shout out to Simon Zomo, who made a very nice pass on the last lap against Reese Harnell, who dropped 4 spots in the end across the race, while the biggest mover was Sam Stride, up 11 spots.
Yeah, Stridey starting way back in the field and all the way up to P3, so he'll be very happy with how that did play out. But race results coming up on screen in just a second. Domination for Glenn Postlethwaite.
Yes, indeed. I think he set the fastest lap just about every single lap over the rest of the field. He was very dominant indeed. Ended up 6.1 seconds ahead of P2, but of course spent most of that last lap drifting about. Sam Stride in P number 3 ahead of Aaron Gilbert and Blake Delaney, who rounds out the top 5. Simon Zomo in 6th after bullying Nick Scarioff for most of the race. Reese Harnell splits those two, thankfully, as a referee, because Nick Scarioff getting absolutely bullied there. Brett Loxton in 9th, and Sean Thompson rounded out our top 10.
Yeah, Corey Kitchen, the last driver to finish the race, does finish on the lead lap, not too far behind Sean Thompson. Anthony Green decided not to continue on after those issues he was having early on in the race. Christensen and Kim didn't have anything to do from race control, which is always a good thing.
Yep, absolutely. So 2 rounds of the this particular series is done, and well, 2 out of 2 times it was that guy on screen, Glenn Postlethwaite, who took the spoils. Another dominant victory for him. Is he able to make it a hat trick in the very next round? We'll have to wait and find out, but nonetheless, a very nice run indeed from Glenn Postlethwaite. But for us, that is all for now, because we are going on a short little break, because next up, race number 2 of the V8s.
Are you new to sim racing, or maybe a veteran struggling to reach the next level? Have you ever wondered how the aliens reach impressive lap times that seem impossible to achieve? If so, you're not alone. Most drivers reach a certain level and get stuck. But getting faster on track is easier than you think. V8S coaches are some of the best sim racers in the world and offer one-on-one driver skills training at affordable rates to help new drivers learn the basics and help experienced drivers break through to the next level. Are you ready to get faster and get off the iRacing roller coaster? If so, V8S one-on-one personal training is for you. If you've invested in your equipment, it might be time to invest in yourself. Just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a 30, 60 or 90-minute session with one of our world-class coaches, and you'll learn exactly what to do for faster lap times and more podiums.
The fortunes of many will change during the night, but already 12 have dropped out. But it's not so bad when you're the first car through, like Paddy Hopko. And here's his main rival, Constant, on Alpha. Standard has been driven flat out from the word go, but it's still got plenty of steam. Deve essere qui. arrivati? Ancora 1 chilometro.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going around the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my god!
Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get involved.
Six very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Well, 2 of the 3 races are done, 1 left to go, and it is the final race of 2, of course, for the V8s in the Racing Sims V8SCOPS support series. This is event number 3, I believe, for V8SCOPS here at Oran Park Circuit, but it is going to be a very exciting one indeed, as the drivers tackle yet another race, and of course, conditions are totally different this time around. Very cool indeed, 27-degree track temp. So these drivers have to adapt very quickly over the next 38 laps.
Definitely are. It's going to be tough for the drivers out there, especially the drivers that jumped into the truck race as well, the support race, to go out and then get their head back around these cars in totally different conditions. So a few drivers actually using this opportunity to do some practice starts, which is not a bad option for some of the drivers as well. So good to see that. I have to give a shout out to Paul Warwick from the Fishy Motorsports crew, who's had to go away for work, so the team are giving him a shout out, and we'll honour that shout out just here because we're nice people.
Allegedly.
Apparently. Occasionally.
But yeah, absolutely. The drivers just working their final few minutes of practice. Yeah, absolutely. For the drivers that did double duty and did the truck race as well, they've got a very short turnaround indeed, with just roughly 1.5 minutes left in this practice session, and then it's straight into the race as well. So they've got their work cut out for them to adapt nice and quickly, as we take a look there at our previous Henry James Racing race winner. So those cars looked very quick at the end of the last race. Can they back it up and go 2 races in a row where their car is just super dominant, and maybe this time instead of a 1-3, can they go a little bit better and do a 1-2?
I'll be hoping that they can get a 1-2, but there's a few drivers out there that are going to make it difficult for them. The likes of Daniel Stevens, who'll be trying to find a little bit more this one and try and hold on to that lead. Of course, Burden, he'll be looking for redemption after race 1 as well, so not a great launch off the line for him. Absolutely bogged it down, went nowhere. He'll be looking to just get it off the line a little bit better. If he could do that, that's a bigger success than race 1. Anything from there is a big plus.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, started on pole, wasn't the night that he would want, but the pace is still there, as you can see. Currently fastest in practice. It was just a case of getting off onto the wrong foot and never really recovered. It was just a constant stumble for the rest of the event, which is a shame to see, but the pace has been there for the Fusion Sim Racing car. A bit of a shame we don't have the livery on screen there for them, because of course a brand new updated livery for those guys running in 2021, and a brand new sponsor as well with the guys, well, of course, mainly Josep from Grip Engineering, a very good sort of setup developing facility that he runs, able to go through Motec and sort of work all that stuff out for you. So big shout out to Josep. He has helped me in the past with my rallycross exploits, and they're now partnering up with Fusion Sim Racing as well. So a great effort from them. And I mean, hey, clearly the setup working nicely here at Oran Park, because he was the fastest in qualifying, but he won't be the driver starting from pole position in this race. The pole position will go to David Coleman, with Anthony Green joining him on the front row. Simon Zomo will kick things off on row Simon, with Simon Vella starting in 4th as well. Blake Delaney will complete our top 5 ahead of Jason Spriggs, who starts in 6th and will be looking for a slightly better result, with Aaron Gilbert starting in 7th ahead of Daniel Stevens, Henry King, and Nathan Tregarthen, your top 10.
Then we've got Sam Fenwick and Shane Best. Then behind there will be Burden, Arnell, then Loxton, Christensen and Thompson are all looking after race control duties. So, well, King is not obviously, but this is going to be a very, very interesting little race here. I'm looking forward to seeing how race 2 plays out. Of course, pretty much reverse grid. Means we're going to see some very, very interesting action.
Yep, absolutely. The revs are rising at the moment and the clutches are dropping, but not for David Coleman. Contact at the start. The pole sitter, 2 out of 2, goes absolutely nowhere, and he will be dumped to last. The Nightmare Curse. So it's second place on the grid for the second time in 2 races. It's a 2 affair as Anthony Green leads the field into turn 2 at the moment. Simon Vella in second with Daniel Stevens in third. A fantastic launch from him. How is Daniel Stevens in third place from 8th on the grid? We're going to need a replay from that a little bit later, but unreal as Jason Spriggs in 4th and Aaron Gilbert rounds out the top 5. What a launch for the number 3 car.
100%. What a brilliant start to the race. That's 2 in a row that he's had good launches from as well, because remember, race 1 started in second and launched straight to the lead, so done a great job there to get himself forward in that. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing if Stevens can hold on, but Anthony Green getting the advantage of that poor jump from the car of David Coleman. He's dropped all the way down to 13th position. Now Anthony Green, is he going to be able to hold on to this lead? Look at the angry pack building behind him.
Yep, no one's letting him go nice and easily. Simon Vella, who was involved in a lot of battles in race 1, well, he's used to fighting in battles. This is not second nature to him after today's race, as our leader locks up heavily in towards turn number 1 and 2. Goes a little bit wide, but no door open for Simon Vella to walk through. He's going to be stuck and defending for at least a few more moments. A big dive up the inside, though, from Vella. And Anthony Green, all too cautious, all too willing to hand that to him. And now Daniel Stevens has seen just how sort of vulnerable and easy that Anthony Green is being. Dives up the inside, but makes contact, almost turns Anthony Green around, who is almost going to get turned around now by Aaron Gilbert, who's got a bit of damage to his car. So out of nowhere, Anthony Green, our race leader, being bullied off the podium entirely, and maybe even further off as well, as the likes of Jason Spriggs and Simon Mazzomo in very close proximity as well. A very aggressive pack as our race leader now, Simon Vella, leads from Dan Stevens, Gilbert in third, Green in 4th, but not comfortably, because look at the pack behind, all working their way through the final corner.
This is going to be an interesting fight now. Is Green going to be able to hold on for too much longer? Will the likes of Spriggs, Mazzomo, Tregarthen be able to get through and through quickly? They'll be trying to get through quickly. Delaney, seeing Blake Delaney very, very slow down the front straight there. Something happened to him there.
Potentially a slowdown penalty or something. The likes clearly back up to speed now. So the 08 machine, it's the temporary lapse in pace there, but nonetheless we'll get back onto his little road and see what he can do as we go and take a look at the number 14 car there with Jason Spriggs, who's under a bit of pressure from Mazzomo, but at the same time trying to apply pressure to Anthony Green, who's recovered well, I have to say, after a bit of a bullying in lap number 2. But we'll go to a virtual racing score replay. I think what we might do is get a look at what happened to Daniel Stevens off the start, because clearly a very nice launch indeed there, and just so much extra launch off the start there, and a few drivers who of course had to bottle up with the car that was stalled on the grid. He just made perfect advantage of it on the inside.
Did a brilliant job at the start there, didn't he? He had all of those spots almost before the start finish line. That's how good of a jump it was. Look at this. 1 spot, 2 spots, 3 spots. Past Spriggs there as well. That's all of the positions done in a matter of seconds.
Very impressive indeed, although was it too impressive as he finds himself down in 14th place at the moment as Daniel Stevens. So something has happened while we've been on replay here, getting one final look at it here, and actually he's done it all by himself on lap number 3. Daniel Stevens in the 4th last corner just spins the car around and has a big moment. So it'll be the lap after this one. I do believe it was lap number 3 where it occurred for Dan Stevens, but he will be filthy with himself after having one of the greatest starts imaginable, got himself right up the order, and then just has to lose all by himself.
Disappointing, because his pace has been great tonight, so the opportunity for him to get some really good points, and we'll stay on the replay to pick it up, because it is very, very race changing. He'll be upset that I'm showing this, but I'll put up with the angry PMs in the morning. But Stevens in now back in 13th position. He's going to have to work really hard to try and get himself anywhere near a top 5 in this race. But what that will mean is we're going to have some great battles to watch as he works his way through, because we know the pace he's got means that he can get through. I know what you're watching.
Yep, we'll get back to that in just a sec. There has been something on track that has just occurred, but take a look at this, because this is where it all went a little bit wrong for Dan Stevens. On the power, loops it around all by himself. I hate to say it, because he is, of course, a very good guy. He's been doing a great job tonight. Just a little bit clumsy there in the early stages of this race. Wasn't to be, and then another virtual racing school replay coming up as well. I believe as Blake Delaney has had a big lose at turn 1 and 2 and finds the tyre barrier at the end of it all. So a big shame there for Delaney, and plenty of other drivers running into grief as well across the course of this race. So not ideal, and you can see that the 1-2-2 car just loses it on the throttle as well. So surprisingly, we're actually seeing a lot of drivers losing it on power in this race. The track conditions must be totally different to what they were used to in race 1.
Yeah, we were told as well, though, we got a message from Mazomo just before the race started that the track had bulk grip in his opinion. So he might not know what bulk grip is, or he's just feeding us lies, one of the two. You can hear me say this too, so that makes it even better. You can tell from the smirk on his face, he's definitely hearing what we're saying.
So what this means is Simon Vella actually ends up with quite a nice lead of 2.5 seconds, and actually in the last lap he was quicker than Aaron Gilbert, who of course ran 3rd place in the last race. So Simon Vella much more comfortable in this particular race and doing a great job, because of course he was one of the drivers in race 1 we saw just struggling with consistency a little bit. Put him in fresh air, and away he goes. Simon Vella doing a great job as he continues to lead yet another lap. Does a 1:05.9, 2/10 quicker than P2. So Aaron Gilbert doing a phenomenal job at the moment, as a slowdown penalty maybe for Anthony Green is very conservative into turn number 1, as Jason Spriggs goes clean around the outside, no trouble at all.
Yeah, Spriggs just gifted the position there, so I think you might be right there. Although saying that, Green's lap time just then did register as an official lap time. That was close from Mazomo. Tried to make the move, but couldn't quite get it to work, but gets it for free after Green makes a mistake. Mazomo with a lot of pressure from behind now. He's got Burden and King both there. We know that the pace from those two is very, very good. So Burden looking for redemption, and King will want to capitalise and try and get 2 wins in the night.
Yeah, absolutely, but he's got a long road to try and hunt down some of the other drivers in this field. At the moment, Henry King in 6th place, and is not 1st place, so there's plenty of cars to pass. And also at the same time, 8.5 seconds to catch your current race leader, who is doing a phenomenal job out front, extending his lead to the other Henry James racing car. So plenty of battles going to happen in the later stages of this race, as Josh Burden clicks across the start-finish line to start yet another lap, with Henry King closing up in the slipstream. We'll go to the track map one more time and see what the wind condition is. Once again, no headwind or tailwind in towards turn number 1. So these drivers with not much slipstream assistance. So if they're going to make a pass, it's got to be nice and authoritative somewhere else on track.
Yeah, we've seen probably the best pass of the night so far from Henry King through that corner there, or through this corner here, actually, turn 4. As he did that beautiful over and under, forced an error from the car of Daniel Stevens, just running slightly wide. Speaking of Stevens, he's already made his way back up into 10th position, so he's not too far away from closing in on this little battle pack. Not a bad redemption if he can work his way even further forward.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Of course, while Henry King is multiple positions ahead of Daniel Stevens, the fact is Daniel Stevens has at least a little bit of clean air at the moment, while Henry King is just sort of stuck in some very competitive traffic, who is getting a little sideways on the corner exit in the form of Josh Burden, but I don't think defending is going to help him too much. I think Henry King may have this one signed, sealed and delivered in towards turn number 1. Around the outside, that's a very wide line, 2 wheels in the dirt, almost holds it though. But what that does mean is Josh Burden gets a bit of a chance of redemption on the inside to try and continue fighting this particular battle against Henry King. But I think the white flag's going to have to wave there, and Josh Burden will have to lose that one spot after a moment at the final corner.
Yeah, Burden won't be too happy with that. We'll try and get that position back once again over Henry King, but King now will start to try and close that gap into Simon Mazzomo ahead. We're at about 0.8 of a second up the road. Stevens only, 8 seconds back from these guys, so his pace still well and truly good enough to be in with this battle. So won't be surprised to see him fighting with these guys in maybe 7 or 8 laps if you can maintain the consistency.
We'll have to wait and see if he can indeed maintain that consistency. There's still plenty of laps to go, 29 left in this race, so anything that's going to happen. And already in the opening 10 laps, plenty has gone on. Plenty of key contenders down the order, and others have just made little errors that have put them or slowed their progress down a little bit more than they would like. So lots going on in the end of this race as Simon Zomo is now the driver in the hot seat with Henry King just lurking behind him, looking for opportunities. And you would have to say Henry King is the favourite in this battle, but just how long can Mazzomo hold him off?
Yeah, exactly right. How long can he hold him off, and is he going to be able to hold him off for 28 odd laps? It's a very, very difficult ask to be able to hold someone off for that long, but it's definitely something that Mazzomo could do. It's a tough track to pass on, and if you can position your car in the right spot every single lap, you can leave yourself in that lead of a group very, very well. But easier said than done. Trying to defend for so long does take a lot of mental strain. By the time you get to the end of the race, can make it very, very difficult.
Absolutely can, as Mazzomo doing a good job at the moment, just losing a little bit of ground to the likes of Jason Spriggs in front, who has edged that gap out. So Jason Spriggs doing a good job at the moment onto a podium spot. Mazzomo, sadly, his defense is only going to last the entire lap, as Henry King, with a nice little move there up the inside, gets the job done nice and easily, and we'll go straight on through. Next target for Mazzomo to defend against was Josh Burden, but he makes a mistake. Nathan Tregarthen is going to make him pay for that mistake with a pass up the inside. It's all a little bit clumsy as the two coming together, and Burden lucky not to turn Tregarthen across his nose there and send him into the infield.
Yeah, very, very fortunate that it wasn't...
He's off.
It's a position back. Very, very fortunate, though, that he didn't turn him around. So Burden probably be thinking that's a blessing in disguise that he wasn't a tad closer through that cutback, that switchback. So that's done. Daniel Stevens not far off gaining another spot. David Coleman in his recovery after that horrible launch off the line. I tell you what, one thing that Coleman will be doing before next round is doing some practice starts, I would be guessing.
More importantly, in the next round of the V8's support series, are drivers actually going to go for pole, or are they just going to try and get second?
Yeah, well, very good point. Is I'm just seeing Anthony Green off the circuit. He's just letting another driver through. Just had a big mistake, big lock up into turn 2, straight ahead. So it's that done, and Stevens already through on Coleman. Coleman's letting go. Daniel Stevens' next target is Nathan Tregarthen. He's only 4.5 seconds up the road. He's closing that gap in. Gap between Stevens and Henry King is actually closer than it was 3 laps ago by a reasonable margin.
Yep, and that just shows how many passes Henry King's had to make over the last few laps. And of course, still stuck in traffic as Henry King is behind Jason Spriggs at the moment. Well, as you can see, Dan Stevens just in a lot more clean air, able to run the laps he wants. And that is why over the last few laps he's been closing down the likes of Henry King, who continues to hunt Jason Spriggs in towards turns 1 and 2. Can't make anything happen on this occasion, but Henry King with plenty of pace in that Falcon at the moment.
Definitely got some really good pace, so we'll see if he can close that up and gain a spot to get onto another podium. That will put 2 Henry James Racing cars on the podium again. This time will be positions 2 and 3. Gilbert will be trying to close that gap down to Simon Vella at the front, still around the 2.5 second bracket, so staying very, very consistent at the same gap at the front. Hasn't really changed too much since it got into that 2.5 odd second bracket, has it?
now it's been very, very stable. But what's not stable is Jason Spriggs' braking approach into the final corner. Just loses it ever so slightly, misses the ideal line with the camber through that corner. Henry James, who did manage to hook it up, Henry King was able to hook up the line a much nicer, run the mid-corner speed, and just get that position nice and easy. So he's up to 3rd place now, and he will try and hunt down Aaron Gilbert, but the issue is, for Henry King, the difference is some 7 seconds now to P2, and you know, Henry King is super, super quick, clearly, in this combination, but that is quite the ask.
Very, very big ask for him to try and close that gap down. So 7 seconds can be done. Still a lot of racing left to do, but I think if he's going to get there, he almost needs to hope that his teammate makes some sort of error. Not over though, and I must say that little battle that King had with Spriggs there, it's brought Mazzomo and Burden into this fight as well. Did you see that for Mazzomo?
I did. A little bit loosey-goosey there for the 051 car. Holds on to it though, you know, gathers it all quite nicely and hits his marks into the final corner. So affecting too much, but I'm sure got the heart rate up a little higher than he'd ideally like.
Definitely would have got the heart rate going as we're on board with Burden. He's trying to close this gap down and work his way forward a little bit more, but not easy to do around this circuit. We know from both real life and sim racing that this circuit is probably one of the toughest to actually make proper overtakes on. It's very, very tough because it's such a short layout in these cars, big heavy cars that don't have great braking performance. Makes it very, very tough to make moves.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a circuit where you really sort of rely on the other driver making a mistake in terms of making it overtake. It's in many ways a one-line track where overtake opportunities just don't present themselves apart from maybe getting a run down that front straight in towards turn 1 and 2. But even then, it is often a very risky place to make a pass happen, and often requires participation of the driver being overtaken as well to make sure there's no contact. So for these drivers, there's definitely a lot of work that goes into each one of these passes, as Nathan Tregarthen there has a very poor exit out of the final corner, just lights the car up into all kinds of wheel spin, and loses a lot of time in the cars in front, so that's unfortunate for him, as tonight's been a bit of a tricky one, because he's clearly had plenty of pace when he needs it, but the cars just haven't fallen his way. Yeah,
100%, he hasn't had things go his way at all. Of course, penalty in race 1 and an unscheduled pit stop. That's a very, very ambitious move for Burton, and I think Mazzomo was very, very friendly and kind, leaving in the room, and going to pay for it now because he's just lost the spot.
Yep, so Mazzomo makes sure there's no damage on his car and just leaves plenty of room, but you have to wonder if he maybe Rue's not braking just a meter or two later, and you know, defending that a little bit harder there against the likes of Josh Burton. But Burton, I would say, definitely has the pace out of those two, so maybe Mazzomo's idea is just to stay behind Josh Burton, use him to get past the likes of Jason Spriggs, and get to the likes of the cars in front, as Henry King actually has a bit of a wobble into the final corner, holds onto the car nicely, but he's pushing at the moment. He's trying his best to hunt down the cars in front, but not able to do it, as last lap around, Simon Vella ended up half a second quicker than P2. He is flying right now in that 393 car.
Definitely is. His pace is looking really good. I was looking at him and thinking all the gaps down to nearly 2 seconds, and then all of a sudden it's back out to 2.8 again. So he's definitely got some great pace. And speaking of good pace, this guy here's got some very, very good pace right now. He's got the gap down to 4 seconds between he and Tregarthen, and starting to close in ever so slightly each lap, gaining a little bit more and a little bit more. Last lap by was only 3/10, but 3/10 is enough when the gap's only 4 seconds. With still a lot of laps to go in this one.
Yep, absolutely. And the thing is as well, the laps go by so quickly here that, you know, it might be 4/10 a lap or 3/10 a lap. That's essentially 3/10 of a second every minute you're closing in. So it won't take too long for Dan Stevens to hunt that time down and get onto the back of the 035 car, who is hunting down Simon Zomo at the moment. Those two very, very close. So Tregarthen, who had that big wobble on the last lap, has made all that ground up and is now hunting down Mazzomo. You can see the gap between them, not much at all. And, well, Mazzomo's had to defend a few times in this particular race, so this won't be unfamiliar territory for him. But it'd be rattling him a little bit, because you can see he's dropped off the back of Josh Burton pretty quickly.
Definitely has. His pace definitely wasn't able to be matched with burden, so already dropped about a second and a half as we have 21 to go. Almost at the halfway point of race 2. Of course, this series supporting the V8SCOPS season each and every round, and next 2 races we've got in V8SCOPS, both going to be in the Porsches, Bo. You'll be out on track.
I will be, and hoping to avoid any 3-wide situations, but nonetheless, it should be pretty fun, and I'm looking forward to it, of course. I think that series will get a lot more competitive as well, with the announcements from iRacing and Porsche as well, that not only, of course, to continue on that train of thought, of course, the Porsche Esports Super Cup qualifiers will be starting in Season 3 as well, so they'll be starting very soon, but also the other news that we've got a new car coming, Jay.
100% new car. It was announced at Hockenheim on last weekend, and sadly you were too busy off racing to be part of the broadcast crew, but it was a pretty cool broadcast that we had there too, with Senecis live at Hockenheim. Flew from Canada to Hockenheim to go and present the final round of the Esports Super Cup at Hockenheim.
Yeah, very impressive indeed for a person with one arm at the moment. So Senecis is a little bit in the wars. He what was it? It was the second last round of the season, I believe. Yep. And about 3 hours before the broadcast, he was it his wrist he managed to...
Yeah, broke his wrist, fell off his push bike and broke his wrist. That sounds familiar.
Yep, and you'd think, oh, well, that's a sick day. He's not going to call in for the broadcast. Nope, he still rocked up, a little bit sore, a little bit whacked out on painkillers, I think, but he was there and did a great job. So Senecis, a very, very cool person to work with if you ever get the chance. Very friendly guy as well. But very cool show that was at Hockenheim. But we've got a pretty cool show going on here at Oran Park at the moment, because that battle for the lead is flip-flopping more than a flip-flop in Bondi Beach at the moment, because that gap has been going from about half a second in the advantage of Simon Villa to half a second to the advantage of Aaron Gilbert. It just keeps changing, and not in small bits and pieces, but in chunks of time each direction.
100%. Henry King last lap as well, just did his fastest lap of the race. Surprisingly, same lap time as Aaron Gilbert, so Gilbert's pace is great right now. Aaron Gilbert does have the fastest lap of the race with a 1 minute 5.4. That lap by 5.7. 5.7 for King, 6.2 for Valla. That's why the gap is now down to 1.2 seconds. Halfway point just gone. 18 to go when they cross the line. This race is getting very, very heated at the front.
It is indeed, and we saw Simon Vella in race number 1 involved in a lot of battles and had to defend plenty of times, so there's no stranger to defending around here, but when you're defending for the race lead, there's just a little bit more pressure on the shoulders. So how will he cope with Aaron Gilbert hunting him down? Only 1/10 of a second gained on that lap, which is only a little bit, but if he gains 1/10 of a second every single lap to the end of the race, he'll still end up catching. That's how fine the margins are around this circuit, and what the gap is currently at. It's a very close race indeed as they work their way through the Yokohama Bridge, but forget Yokohama, we're on Dunlops today, and they are working hard around this circuit as Aaron Gilbert continues to hunt down that gap.
Yep, and it is closing. 1.2 seconds is the gap now. The last lap by, all 3 of our top 3 did the same lap time. Pretty much everyone in that top 6 did very, very similar lap times within 0.3 of each other. So the front of the field is all very, very close in regards to pace, which is what you want to see. It means that you've got very, very tight, close racing. And it means that there's no quarters given either. Everyone's going to defend their positions because there is nothing in it. If they lose a spot, it's just as hard for them to get them back as it was for the guy behind to actually make that move in the first place.
Yep, absolutely. It's a very hard fought racing between everyone, and nothing is easily lost, nothing's easily gained either. It is very aggressive racing, and that's why we love SCOPS so much. Of course, it was a bit of a slow burner in race 1, but race number 2 has definitely got a little bit more heat in it at the moment, as once again, another 1/10 of a second in the advantage of Aaron Gilbert at the moment. He is closing bit by bit by bit, and Simon Vella will definitely be feeling the pressure now because, of course, you get that gap out to about 2 seconds. You can't see them in your mirror anymore. You sort of run in your own little bubble, but when they're 1 second behind, every now and then you just get little glimpses of, even if you're not looking in your mirror, you just get little glimpses of them just lurking in your rearview mirror when you don't want them to. You'll, of course, see the headlights if they're switched on, which they're not at the moment on Aaron Gilbert's car, but maybe they need to be on the other car of the 364 Fishy Motorsports, who's had a little bit of a moment there off the circuit. We'll get a virtual racing score replay and find out exactly what's happened.
Yeah, big lockup coming through turn 1. through turn 2, okay. I think he's just got the power on a little bit too aggressively and just fishtailed back the other way. Appropriate with the Fishy Motorsports living to fishtail it, and Rex Harnell did a good job.
I
to
knew
avoid
you were
that.
going to bring that up.
Ha! It had to be done.
No, the second I heard you say, like, it's just pronouncing like the FI, I'm like, oh, he's going for it, isn't he? He's absolutely going for it. But still plenty going on at the moment as Josh Burden has now found his way past Jason Sprutz as well. So those guys have swapped around, and Josh Burden is now free to hunt down Henry King in front. And I do think Josh Burden can hunt down Henry King in the time given. Of course, he's very, very quick. Put it on pole for race number 1. So the speed is definitely there. It's just whether or not this battle for the lead will close up at the same rate as last time. Simon Vella responded and was the 10th faster than Aaron Gilbert. So plenty swapping around at the moment between these guys. We'll see what the lap times are on this particular lap. We've been running around basically the high 5s to low 6s more than likely. So this time around, we'll see what the lap times are. It's going to be a 1:05.9 again, matched by a 1:05.9. Both doing lap times to within 200ths of a second. So there is not much being left on the table at all as they funnel their way in towards turns 1 and 2. And you got a brief look there as well at Daniel Stevens, who is making a bit of a charge at the moment. And he's not far away from Nathan Tregarthen now, who's a battle with Simon Mazoma has sort of died down. Mazoma has responded and been able to extend that margin away. But Dan Stevens having in a hurry at the moment with a 1:06.0 last lap around. That's roughly half a second a lap quicker than the cars in front.
Yeah, and you can see he's right there on the tail of Tregarthen. Tregarthen's last lap was actually a little bit off the pace. I'm going to 7.1 for Tregarthen, and Dan Stevens is 6.0, so it's 1.1 seconds quicker for Stevens' last lap. And he will be trying to get this move done as quick as he can, but then apply pressure to Mazzomo. Tregarthen's got to be careful because this is, again, the thing we were talking about before, being the middle car in a 3-car battle. He's now gone from trying to attack and get that move done on Mazzomo. Now he's in defense mode again. That can result in some errors potentially happening. Mazzomo could check out here if there's too much defense going on from Tregarthen.
Yep, absolutely. As we'll see how that pans out. Of course, Mazzomo's gap to the cars behind is looking at around 1.5 seconds at the moment. And it was actually 0.3 of a second quicker than Tregarthen last lap around as well, while Daniel Stevens matched Mazzomo. So that is definitely a possibility where Mazzomo could check out compared to those two in front, as Tregarthen is going to maybe put up a bit of a fight, hopefully, possibly. No, he's going to let him go nice and easily. But I have to say, if you're going to let someone go, that was a little bit clumsy of a place to do it, as it sort of just walks them both. And they actually did end up losing a lot of time to Mazzomo. So it's an easy spot gained, but maybe not the most time efficient.
Yeah, and one thing I've noticed too is that Mazzomo's starting to close in on Spriggs. The battle for 5th and 6th, it's down to 1.4 seconds. So Mazzomo's pace is definitely closing in as well. Aaron Gilbert still not able to break below that 1 second bracket between he and Vella, so they're staying exactly as they were. How good's that lockup though from Simon Vella? There's going to be nothing left of that left front.
He's going for the Lewis Hamilton Turkey spec intermediate tyre, where they just end up turning it into a slick. As you can see, that's already a slick, so I'm not sure what it will be at the end of this race. It might just be a wheel rim, to be honest. But that KFC car doing a very nice job at the moment indeed. And I'm sure this position at the moment is finger looking good in his idea. But still, I mean,
I guess
it's a long day. It had to be done. But no, he's still putting up a good fight. And on my timing screen, I recently added this little thing where it averages out your last 5 lap times against one another, so you can sort of get a better idea of the closing rate between cars. And if you want to know the gap between Simon Vella and Aaron Gilbert, so average out their last 5 lap times, what the gain and losses is, exactly 100th of a second in favour of Gilbert. That is how evenly matched they are right now.
That's pretty incredible that they're so close.
So across the line, it's now 6 thousandths. It is so close between these guys at the moment. They can't gain on each other in any way, shape or form. The last 5 laps, the fastest driver has been Henry King by 0.03 of a second. This field right now is just ultra close against one another, and everyone's sort of struggling to sort of make time on each other. There'll be one lap where one driver will gain 0.2, but then on the next lap, the next driver will respond. It's just a constant ebb and flow And these final 12 laps, while the gaps are sort of stagnating out a little bit, you can't guarantee that it's all over.
100%, and a lot of it's just going to come down to, I was about to say who makes the least mistakes. Well, there's a huge one from Vela. That's lead gone, just like that.
Yep, absolutely. So, unfortunately, that is not in any way, shape or form what he would be looking for. That now hands the lead to Aaron Gilbert, but we have seen the pace between those two be very close. So it's not like Aaron Gilbert can now afford to just cruise home. He has to be careful and keep the pace up to make sure that lead is maintained. You can see there's just a lapped car in front and just caught him out a little bit, brakes on the grass, and just a painful slide off the road.
Really heavy hit with the wall there too, but luckily for him he did hit it flush on, so hopefully hasn't caused him any damage to his car. Right hand side doesn't look too healthy now, does it?
No, not at all. It's a little bit worse for wear, as Dan Stevens has in the last few laps found a way past Nathan Tregarthen as well. So he's up another spot. His next target is Simon Zoma. On last lap, he was 0.4 of a second quicker than the fastest car on track as well. So Dan Stevens with plenty of pace, hunting the Amazoma, who's 1.3 seconds behind Jason Spriggs. But these three guys all on track pretty close. So they may concertina up towards the end of the race, but at the same time, they're all running relatively the same pace. So going to require a few mistakes for any little position swaps to happen there. But as you can see, across the start-finish line, Aaron Gilbert is your new race leader. 2 seconds the advantage over Simon Vela. But Vela still did a pretty decent lap time in all honesty at a 106.5. So that damage, although visibly not ideal, maybe not hurting him as much as we thought.
Downfall for Velo though is Henry King last lap by 5.9, so 0.6 of a second faster. He's got that gap down under 5 seconds. Definitely starting to close in, and Henry King's last few lap times have been a lot more consistent as well. Is it Velo that's had a spin just ahead? No, it's Fenwick. So our wild card driver for tonight, Sam Fenwick, not having the greatest run there. I was worried that was Velo just ahead of Henry King that had that spin.
No, Vela is quite okay driving around, and currently 1.6 seconds behind Vela as he just has a little moment through that left-hander and loses 0.3 of a second. But Vela was actually clawing it back against Aaron Gilbert there, so it's not all bad for Simon Vela right now. There's still plenty of pace in that car, and if he can get his head down and just get within 1.1, 1.2 seconds, maybe there's a little bit of slipstream he can pick up and just sort of close in that way. But the pace is still there. He was quicker that lap just then, but it was actually a lot quicker than Aaron Gilbert over the first half of the lap before he had a little mistake. So don't count this one over just yet. It's still not done, as this gap already on this lap has gone from 1.9 seconds to 1.65. So gap's still able to come down. So that damage definitely not affecting the 393.
Yeah, I'm impressed that he's still got such good pace with that damage that he has got there. So as I said, it's probably lucky that he hit it like flush side on. Had I went a little bit nose in, might have caused a little bit of steering damage. Speaking of damage, Mazomo's car still looks very, very second-hand, of course, from contact at the race start from Dave Coleman's not great launch off the line. Daniel Stevens trying now to get this move done. He's right on the tail of Mazomo.
He is very close between the two of them, as Mazomo has had a very good run. He's been lurking around the top 5, top 6 the entire race, and only has a few more laps now to hold off Daniel Stevens, but this will be a pretty hard-fought fight, you would have to imagine. And how hard is Mazomo willing to fight? Of course, he knows he'll get some very decent points with a few drivers from round 1 not racing tonight. Now, he has the potential to build a pretty decent championship charge at the moment if he just keeps banking points. So Mazomo has to ask himself, does he really want this 6th place, or is he willing to be a little bit more lenient and maybe just build a championship here?
Yeah, it's a tough sort of decision to make. It's not one that you really want to make on the fly either, is it? It's sort of something that you sort of need someone in your ear to help you out with. Unfortunately for him, the people in his ear that he's got tonight are you and I, so
You suck, Simon.
He's got a big smile on his face. I would have laughed a few after a second there when you said that. Surprised he hasn't muted us, to be honest. But Dan Stevens, he looks really composed, doesn't he? He just looks like he's in a little bit of a chill out, doesn't he? He doesn't look too stressed at all.
No, not at all. He's definitely doing his own little race at the moment, just hitting his own marks. which is at this point in time what he needs to do. He has been closing by only little bits and fractions compared to Mizomo. So if he's going to make a pass, he's going to have to work for it. This isn't going to be an easy pass for him. It's one he's going to have to, properly set up, really, I'll think about and execute well in order to make it happen. Because otherwise, the pace delta between them just isn't enough to warrant Stevens, just luck into an overtake. So it's going to be an interesting battle as we take a little look here at Mizomo working his way into turn number 3. And he's just hitting his marks, doing exactly what he needs to do. And if that's what he keeps doing, he just keeps hitting his braking points, turn-in points, acceleration points, I don't think Daniel Stevens will be able to find a way past easy.
Exactly right. The only issue is the tyres now are 31 odd laps old, and the Dunlops tend to sort of scream no mercy at this point in these big heavy V8s, so that could be something that he might be struggling with, but Stevens definitely isn't struggling with grip at the moment, but pace at this point of the race is another story. It makes it very, very tough to get past. When you're very, very closely matched for pace, it makes it a lot harder to get a move done. 6 to go. Will Mizomo be able to hold on?
Well, that is the question. We don't know the answer yet, but we will in just 6 laps time as they work their way in towards turns 1 and 2 for the 33rd time in this particular race. You can see Dan Stevens started in 8th, currently up to 7th, but that just does not tell you the picture of what his race has been tonight.
100% doesn't. This probably explains it a little bit better.
Yep, there we go.
That's a better picture.
That's a much better picture. It gives you the full story. So it was a brilliant launch, throwing himself right into 3rd, then into 2nd, I believe, at one point, but he's not scored as his highest position in 2nd, because in that same lap, he managed to find himself off the road and dropping himself all the way down to 14th place in the end. So he's had a very up and down night after almost winning race 1, wasn't to be, and then had a great shot to win race 2. Overall, it'll be good points in the bank, I'm sure, for Dan Stevens. You can't help but feel he'll walk away from this one just thinking what could have been.
100% will be thinking that as 5 laps to go for the drivers now. And Stevens will be...
Gilbert's been off the road. Gilbert has been off the road. Vela attacking around the outside, trying to make something happen here. It's neck and neck between those two. Can't quite do it. And Vela running wide is going to open the door to Henry King. He tries to go up the inside, almost contact between the two. Could not quite manage it. So this is now a 3-horse race for the win. In the dying stages of this race, we talked about can Henry James Racing get a 1-2. There's still a possibility, but Simon Vela is not going to make this easy. But what happened to Aaron Gilbert at the start of this lap?
We need to try and work out exactly what's happened to Aaron Gilbert at the start of this lap. Through the exit of turn 2, he's just locked it up and run wide.
Yep, very little mistake there, but had big consequences in the end. Almost lost in the race win. He was very lucky and smart in his positioning of the car to make sure he defended that when he was rejoining the circuit. But what it has now done is put him under the pressure as Simon Vela very late on the brakes in towards turn 1 and 2. He holds on, but he's in a very tricky spot. He's got Henry King and Aaron Gilbert very close to one another. They'll no doubt be communicating with each other, and they've got a lot to think about right now as Simon Vela is definitely the meat in an unfortunate Henry James Racing sandwich.
Yeah, and Vela will be trying to work out, does he attack or does he defend? This is the same situation again. How many times have we seen this tonight where you end up the middle car not knowing what to do, whether you want to attack or defend, and where do you leave yourself open? But Vela, I think he just has to try and hold on for second here. Henry's going to try and make the move, I've got no doubt about that, but where will he try and do it? A, and B, will he be able to pull it off? I'm sure he won't go for a move unless he's 100% confident he can do it. He might not be able to now because that is very, very well saved.
But that's got big consequences though now for Henry James Racing, because Henry King's now out of the picture. What that means is Simon Vela doesn't have to look behind him, he can only look forward. And with the gap of 1 second, we've already seen Aaron Gilbert be unstable into turn 1 and has a little bit of damage to his car as well. Let's not forget at the rear. This is not over. These are 2 wounded cars, but they're 2 wounded cars with plenty of pace and only a few more laps to decide it.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. And it's been a long night of racing for these guys as well. So this is coming up to nearly 80 laps of racing at this point. plus adding qualifying and practice, they're probably done on 100 laps tonight. That is very exhausting around a track like this, a bull ring style circuit where you've got
Henry's
no
off again.
chance to rest. Mistakes start to happen.
Yeah, and Henry's having a nightmare at the moment, and he can't afford that because Josh Burden is coming into the picture as well. He's not that far behind, so one more mistake from Henry, and he's going to be all kinds of in pain here against the likes of the Fusion Sim Racing car. And let's not forget this battle with Dan Stevens and Simon Mazomo, where Stevens not able to find a way past at the moment. It's still very close between these guys as we're heading towards 2 laps to go. Stevens in the grass on the outside there, overcooks the final corner, which means his exit is going to be a little bit worse off compared to Mazomo, so a bit more breathing room there for the 051 car against the number 3. So this is a battle that's going to go right down to the final lap as well. Plenty of battles coming to a crescendo here.
Definitely are a few battles that are coming to a crescendo at the end. It's great to see that we've got fighting all the way to the end. This is the closest battle. It's still around about 1.5 seconds between Gilbert and Vella. So Gilbert's regained his composure. Burden not able to close in on King. Mazomo's done a great job of defending this position. He's just been able to put the cars in the right spot, and you can see the impatience starting to come in from Daniel Stevens with that mistake on this lap, or the previous lap.
Yep, absolutely. He's trying to make up for a bit of time that he lost, and in doing that, you can often put yourself into a bit of a spiral where you start over driving and you just end up losing more time than if you just stayed calm, cool, and composed from the very start. But you can see he has managed to find that time back. He's nice and close now to Simon Mazomo, who did make a little bit of a bit of a run wide through the dogleg section, just missed his apex, and again misses the apex. Parks the car on the exit, tries to kill the run of Daniel Stevens, which he does, but Stevens still going to get the draft, so Mazomo positions the car a little bit more defensively here. And what does Daniel Stevens do? Does he go for a crossover move into towards turn number 1? He thinks about it, but can't quite do it. Mazomo stays in the middle of the road, almost hits his marks. He just needs to defend the inside here, and he should be covered against Dan Stevens, who is really running out of time and opportunities to make this pass happen. Nothing going on for your race lead at the moment. They're still all fairly separate against one another, so we'll stay with this for the next few corners. But I think Dan Stevens is going to have to go for a big lunge at the final corner from this point in time. But nonetheless, we'll go up to Henry James Racing's Aaron Gilbert, because he has had quite an interesting race from 7th on the grid, got himself up the order through a few misfortunes from others, but had to fight for it in the end. But fight he did, pulled it off. He did as well. He'll take victory after 38 laps here in race number 2 of the RacingSims.co.nz V8SCOPS support series. You can see Dan Stevens trying against Simon Mazomo, can't quite do it. So Mazomo will end up winning that particular battle as well. Great effort there from the Fitstyle Racing car, as the rest of your field relatively separated compared to one another. So they will all file across the line. But what an effort from Henry James Racing. They didn't get the 1-2 they perhaps would have liked, but a double 1-3 is a great result for the team.
100%. If you said at the start of the night that your team's going to get both cars on the podium throughout the night, you're probably going to be pretty happy with that. And Henry King fighting back to 3rd. Gilbert picking up the win in the 2nd race, 3rd in the 1st race. Great night for those guys. They will be overjoyed with that. Wasn't as easy as it looks on paper, but to take the victory in both races, definitely a great team morale building night.
Yeah, definitely. And they're doing a little bit of a post-race celebrations there amongst themselves, and they definitely deserved that as well. So there we go. There is our results up on screen. Aaron Gilbert, your winner, in a Ford 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 at the end of it all. So we end up with 5 Fords, 5 Holdens. Battle still definitely on there, but it is Gilbert winning ahead of Simon Vella and Henry King, your top 3. Josh Burden makes a nice recovery to 4th in the end after a tricky night of racing for him. Jason Spriggs in position number 5 ahead of Simon Mazomo and Dan Stevens, who had their great fight. Nathan Tregarthen in position number 8, Reese Harnell in 9th, and David Coleman in position number 10.
Yep, everyone else finishes a lap down or did not finish, that being Fenwick and Green laps down. Delaney and Best both did not finish the race, unfortunately. Loxton Christensen and Sean Thompson, they had even less to do in this race, sitting in the race control booth, and they did in race 1.
Yep, absolutely. So that is the end of our 3 races of action we've had so far in the V8 SCOPS support series. It's been a very interesting 3 races indeed, with very different, sort of battles playing out. Of course, race 1 was a little bit more spread out, and it's more just keeping your focus. Race 2 in the trucks was just hard fought racing, beating and bashing each other all the way across the line. And then race number 3 definitely was how you keep your cool in the heat of battle at the end of it all. But that is all from us for now. But if you do want more V8SCOPS action, there is still plenty going on this weekend. Do not forget, pre-qualifying is currently underway. 80 grid slots available in Split 1 and Split 2. And there's going to be a lot of interesting racing happening this Sunday. And you do not want to miss absolutely any of it. So on behalf of Mr. J.K. Kennedy for joining me in the commentary box tonight and in the director's box, that is all from us here at SimSpeed. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next time. This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rhythm, both of them! Maloney!
He's taking Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
6 very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, here we go! Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?